The Hogwarts professor mixed into Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, Lockhart's Magic Laboratory. Vincian World, Research Room. Vincian World is Lockhart's home, so naturally there are all kinds of buildings and settings. Among them, the most important magic research room for Lockhart is naturally among them. To be precise, the research room in Vincian World is the most expensive, and it can be regarded as one of the best in the entire Kamar-Taj. There are all kinds of advanced equipment in the world of science and technology, and all kinds of magic instruments and magic circles in the world of wizards. Here, many wizards who study magic and a large number of scientists have lived for a long time. In Lockhart's cognition, doing research is never a one-person thing. No matter how smart a person is, he still has his limitations and expenses. And group research is far better than individual research. This is Lockhart's experience in doing research in his previous life. Even if he is doing magic research, he also forms a corresponding research team. There are scientists and wizards. He can make such rapid progress by relying on the research of the team. In the Harry Potter world, wizards can more or less realize this, but he can't do it like Lockhart, because Lockhart spent huge resources to form a team. To put it bluntly, the funds burned in this laboratory every moment are enough for an ordinary person to live a good life. This kind of life is the kind that travels abroad at least once a year. Of course, at present, the number of scientists in the entire magic laboratory is the largest. After all, there are too many people in the secular world. Most of the wizards are students. There are very few real elite wizards and master level wizards. And the reason why Lockhart allowed students to enter the laboratory is mainly to cultivate their abilities. These students have better research talents than combat talents. With Lockhart's concept of teaching students in accordance with their aptitude, he naturally would not let them fight. But these scientists and wizards all serve Lockhart's magic research. At this moment, in the center of this huge, spacious and advanced laboratory, an extremely complex magic circle slowly started up, emitting a lavender fluorescence. And in the center, a scroll with green skin floated in the air. Under the control of the magic circle, he would change into a new appearance every 10 minutes, including wizards, magical animals, and ordinary people. Of course, each interval would also allow him to stay in his original body for about 3 minutes. Convenient for scientists and wizards to observe at this moment. Around this scroll, many scientists and wizards gathered together and discussed fiercely. They are new magical creatures. Their talents are related to the transfiguration spell. No, according to the data, they are not species in the wizard world, but a humanoid life form. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. How can he simulate the blood of wizards? This is not magic. His genes are very interesting. I just collected a part of his green blood for research, and found that their genes are very complex, and have strong adaptability. Eris, I understand what you mean, but I find it difficult to understand one thing. They adopt the method of swallowing foreign genes. Even if his gene tolerance is very high, the probability of gene collapse should also increase. This is not scientific. At this moment, the wizards and scientists were discussing fiercely with each other, constantly expressing their ideas, arguing at the same time, trying to find each other's mistakes and perfect their own ideas. At the same time, Lockhart and Grindelwald stood aside, quietly watching the researchers discussing in front of them. To be honest, this scene in front of him had a great impact on Grindelwald. He never thought that magic research could reach this level. I won't say much about magic instruments, magic circles, etc. This should be considered a standard for wizard research, but Lockhart's is of a higher grade. It is normal to gather excellent wizards to study together. What surprised Grindelwald was that there were a large number of ordinary muggles here. Lockhart actually accepted the scientific concepts of muggles and bought a large number of advanced instruments. He couldn't understand these instruments, but just by looking at the huge shell and complex devices, he could sense the advanced features. Through these complex instruments, the group of muggles who knew nothing were allowed to participate in the research of magic. It really refreshed Grindelwald's worldview. He couldn't imagine the scene of wizards and scientists communicating about magic. One of them talked about emotions, magic, and spells. The other one talked about mathematics, atoms, formulas, and laws. The two species that had nothing to do with each other were actually mixed together. It must be said that Lockhart's imagination was really open. Lockhart, do you usually do magic research like this? Grindelwald couldn't help but ask. I know about science, but there is a huge gap between it and magic. After hearing this, Lockhart smiled and said, I know that up to now, many scientists still cannot agree with the concept of magic. But I don't need them to agree, I just need their research ideas. They use their own way to see through the root of magic. They are on a completely different path from magic, and many of their ideas are a very good supplement to me. The most typical example is the structure of the dream world, in which this group of scientists played a major role. They played a huge role in the composition of the world, some ecological environment, system operation, etc. Lockhart naturally would not explain these in detail to Grindelwald. After hearing this, Grindelwald still seemed to have some opinions that he couldn't agree with, but he still controlled himself and didn't continue the conversation. Instead, he began to change the subject. Have you thought about how to deal with Ms. Marvel? She should be back on Earth soon. Don't worry about her. Lockhart said calmly. The way has been given to him. If the other party really wants to make trouble, it's nothing more than a fight. Don't forget, even if we couldn't defeat him at that time, the Sorcerer Supreme is still there. At this point, Lockhart's mouth curled up a smile. Besides, SHIELD will probably try its best to stop the fight. Yes, the reason why Lockhart and Grindelwald tolerated Nick Fury's provocative behavior and even simply cleared each other's memory and let him go. The most important reason is that Nick Fury had sent a signal to call Captain Marvel back before Lockhart came, and even before Grindelwald explored his memory. Otherwise, with Grindelwald's means, it would not be a problem to make Nick Fury and others disappear quietly. The problem is that when Captain Marvel returns, if he finds that Nick Fury has really disappeared, the consequences will be difficult to predict. That's why Nick Fury was let go, and just his memory was cleared. However, even if the memory is wiped, I believe that Nick Fury will recover soon. After all, Lockhart has seen the other party's plan for memory wipe and Nick Fury see. The other party's mechanical eyes have transmitted everything they see in real time. Lockhart didn't care about this, or it could be said that this is the last step for S.H.I.E.L.D. If he admits that his memory is gone, and assumes that the Skrulls consider him their experimental subject, then there will be cooperation in the future. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. has participated in a lot of the instruments and scientists in the laboratory. If he doesn't admit it and wants to make trouble, then Lockhart will accompany him to the end. After all, although he doesn't want to cause trouble, he is definitely not afraid of it. Chapter 577, The Circle of the Wizarding World, Winning Over Doctor Strange. Vincian World, Night. Hi, Strange. If you have nothing tonight, let's go to dinner together. I'll treat you today. The young wizard John made a friendly invitation to the future Doctor Strange. In just a few days, what did they see as a true genius? Ordinary spells. After listening to them once, they can get started immediately, and they can use them proficiently. After practicing and writing them a few more times, they still don't understand the advanced spells after listening to them, but the other party has already started to get started. Even in the potion class, the other party was praised by Professor Snape several times in a row. You know, Snape has always been known for his strictness. It is no exaggeration to describe Strange as someone who can learn it as soon as he learns it. So John expressed his kindness to Strange. Well, although I was very envious and even a little jealous of the other party's talent. However, under the guidance of Lockhart, Peggy, Steve and other famous teachers, the road has been broadened. At this moment, Strange looked at John, who invited him in front of him, and was about to refuse. Suddenly, his eyes moved, as if he thought of something, nodding to accept the other party's invitation. Seeing Strange accept his invitation, a faint smile appeared on John's face. One more friend means one more way. This is John's philosophy. Especially for geniuses, he always stays friendly. because no one knows whether he will use the other party in the future or even ask for help from the other party. He is also quite well connected in the circle of wizards and mages. As they spoke, the two walked towards the restaurant of the Vincian world. Lockhart's development of the Vincian world is the development of the business center of the extraordinary world and the core of obtaining cultivation resources for himself. Among them, there are naturally various restaurants. Ordinary, high-end, fashionable, and various characteristics can be said to be available. With the magic of magic, the construction time does not exceed 1 week, and even if you are in a hurry, you can see it in 1 day. This is magic. This is the extraordinary world. And John, as the host of the dinner, naturally will not choose a bad restaurant. Soon, the two walked side by side and came to a light column with a faint silver white light. There was no surprise. John had been here countless times. He stepped directly into the light column, but he slightly waved the blue flag and followed closely. As soon as Strange entered the light column, he felt a very soft invisible force around him, constantly pulling himself up to the sky. Soon, he and John floated up to the sky through the silver white beam of light, overlooking the entire Vincian world, large and small buildings. This process was not fast, but not slow either. It seemed to leave them enough time to appreciate the Vincian world from a bird's eye view. In Strange's eyes, it seemed that a prosperous but strange city came into view. Unlike metropolises like New York, the buildings in the Vincian world were not particularly crowded, but rather seemed a bit loose. Here, high-rise buildings are even rarer, but relatively speaking, many buildings float directly in the air and have gorgeous shapes, some of which are even like animals. Strange even saw a tree-like building, which was a bit far away. However, every fruit on the tree could still be seen clearly, and it seemed to be a store or a house. Soon, John and Strange had flown to the top of the sky. With the naked eye, large patches of white clouds were seen floating slowly in the sky. Moreover, many of the white clouds were covered with tables and chairs. It seemed to indicate that above the white clouds was where they were having dinner. This was one of the high-end restaurants in the Vincian world, Cloud Palace. To be honest, Strange's eyes could not help but glow with a strange light when he saw this. It must be said that compared to Kamar-Taj, the Vincian world was more in line with the imagination of an extraordinary world. Come here, John. Strange is here too. Come on, sit down. As if sensing the arrival of John as the host, the white clouds not far away slowly floated to the light column, as if they had life. Friends on the clouds also began to greet John and Strange. The two of them also sat in their seats at this time. John sat in the main seat, and Strange sat on the side, as if to indicate that this dinner was started by Strange. At the moment, when everyone was present, colorful lights flickered above the table. At the same time, all kinds of delicacies materialized at a speed visible to the naked eye. A strange aroma permeated the surroundings. It was not strong, but it made people's appetites wet. On the exquisite jade plate, there were fresh but alive, even jumping meats, and strange green plants with a faint fragrance. This was really different from the real things Strange saw every day. But in John's eyes, these were very common, because this was the food unique to the wizarding world. Cooking some magical creatures, including some magical plants. After taking a small bite, Strange closed his eyes, as if he was savoring the faint fragrance in his mouth. It was really memorable. Suddenly, his expression moved slightly, because he felt that the magic power in his body seemed to have been increased to a certain extent, and the speed of operation increased by about 10% at once. This is magic food. Bringing a magic food system from the wizarding world. Kamar-Taj also has it, but it is in its infancy, or they still stick to that simple style. Strange, how do you feel? John lost a lot of blood this time. Try this. This is a soup made from the heart-clearing grass. It can clear the mind, and is said to have the effect of enlightening wisdom. A young wizard on the side said with a smile. After hearing this, John smiled but said nothing. Treating guests means being generous. After all, it is all for the purpose of building relationships. You can't be frugal at this time, and you have to let the other party clearly feel your goodwill. After hearing this, Strange also scooped a spoonful into his bowl with curiosity. Well, it's a bit fresh, even a bit cool, not like the feeling of hot soup. At the same time, Strange suddenly felt a cool current in his brain. The whole person suddenly became much more awake, and vaguely found that he suddenly became more sensitive to the surroundings. Good stuff, not only delicious, but also very strange. Strange praised. This made the wizard on the side smile faintly. They may not care about the growth of ordinary people, but for a super genius like Strange, it's different. In their eyes, there is no doubt that Strange will definitely become a strong man in the future. Who knows, the future will be demanded from the other party. This is the profit-seeking nature of people, whether in ordinary people or in the extraordinary world. Later, at the invitation of several wizards, Strange tasted several magical delicacies with different effects. Some can increase magic power, some can temporarily improve mental power, and some have no effect, just pure deliciousness. At the same time, a group of wizards began to chat, and the topic changed slightly. From some magical animals to magical plants to some interesting experiences, and some battles, and finally it was the turn of magic knowledge. In this way, it seems that everyone is interested in what someone shares. There must be a common theme, just chatting. The more they chatted, the more harmonious the atmosphere was. The Columel Enterprise gradually integrated into it and shared his own insights on some magic. It has to be said that a genius is a genius. When Strange expressed his thoughts on some magic, although it was superficial, it could still give some wizards such as John some tips. This made everyone more enthusiastic about Strange. After all, for them, strength is the most important thing. Just as everyone was discussing magic knowledge, suddenly, Strange opened his mouth to guide the topic. Does everyone know about chaos magic? I heard from Mr. Lockhart that it is said to be very magical. Chapter 578 Doctor Strange and Chaos Magic. Chaos magic? Hearing Strange's question, John on the side repeated the question, and then said with some envy, "Isn't this the magic that Wanda practices?" Really? Strange was a little surprised. It was really hard to find the chaos magic that he had been thinking about day and night. It was so beautiful that Wanda, who had been chatting with him these days, turned out to be a practitioner of chaos magic. Yes. The young wizard opposite Strange also said enviously, Wanda's cultivation speed with chaos magic is really rapid. I remember that he had just learned magic not long ago, and now, his combat power has been at the forefront, much stronger than us. At this point, several wizards also nodded and said enviously, as if this topic suddenly opened up some emotions in their hearts. It's a pity, chaos magic is too much of a test of talent. Wanda, with her talent, was not only able to practice the activity method, but also became the instructor's personal disciple. Alas, there is no comparison. Wanda received special care from various teachers, and the resources and benefits she enjoyed were much higher than ours. It is said that the magic equipment she wore was customized by the instructor himself. Forget it, forget it. It's useless to think so much. We should try not to touch chaos magic. Don't forget the last time you secretly learned chaos magic. Yes, if the instructor hadn't acted in time, I'm afraid Jamie would not only lose his ability to cast spells, but he might even lose his life. He is also miserable. The instructor repeatedly emphasized that without passing the assessment. Don't touch chaos magic. Teacher Peggy is right. Some people seem smart, but they are actually extremely stupid. As they talked, the topic was gradually diverted. It seemed that everyone was consciously diverting the topic of chaos magic. Because it was very simple. Because Jamie practiced chaos magic privately before, not only did he harm himself, but also some of the students who instigated him were severely punished. If Strange was allowed to study chaos magic because of them, let alone whether he could figure it out. If other people knew about this, they would probably be implicated. Yes, in Lockhart's opinion, people who did something wrong were indeed hateful, but the people who encouraged them were even more hateful. Using other people's lives to conduct experiments, if something went wrong, others would bear the responsibility, and if there was any benefit, they could enjoy it themselves. In his previous life, Lockhart had never been fond of such people. Strange, who was standing aside, did not stop them when he heard everyone change the subject. However, his eyes revealed a thoughtful look, as if he had already had an idea in mind. At this moment, suddenly, Strange, if you are interested in chaos magic, you can ask Wanda or the mentor first, and never study it privately. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, you may not be able to stay in the Vincian world. The mentor hates some geniuses who are overconfident and self-righteous. John's low warning voice was transmitted to Strange's ears through magic. Instantly, Strange turned his head to look at John, who was holding up a small cup of sake, as if he wanted to invite him to have a drink. After seeing this, Strange smiled slightly, picked up the small wine glass on his table, and gently touched it. He drank the sake in the glass. Then he continued to discuss the topic on the table. He began to talk about some gossip, as well as the experience of going on missions, especially the experience of fighting aliens during the Battle of New York not long ago. Strange was also quite curious about these, especially when he heard Lockhart cast a spell to clear the memory of the entire city. In addition to being surprised, more of this was the emotion and ambition that was ignited in his heart. Kings, princes, generals, and ministers, are they of the same kind? He is also a genius. I believe that, as long as he works hard, he will become a wizard as powerful as Lockhart in the future, or even more powerful. John, who was standing aside, seemed to feel that Strange did not continue to struggle with chaos magic, and he was slightly relieved. After studying with mentor Lockhart for so long, he knew some small hopes, which seemed insignificant, but were very taboo behaviors. For example, malicious guidance or instigation. Once such things are found out, they will be punished together with the crime, and the instigator will even be punished more severely than the person who did the wrong thing. You know, this is a world of magic. Many things are not about deeds, and not about heart, but about heart and not deeds. Your thoughts, your ideas, your intentions, in the eyes of the strong, are really clear at a glance. Lockhart is very sensitive to these things, which is also his habit. He will not indulge the evil thoughts of others. He will suppress everything in the bud. Don't let a pot of rat shit spoil the whole pot of soup. Under Lockhart's perverted rules, the atmosphere among students is particularly good, and the efficiency of learning and practicing speed has also doubled. The next day, deep in the library of the Vincian world, Strange walked in the quaint library, quietly looking at the various magic books on the shelves. Lockhart attaches great importance to knowledge, and most of the books he collected are placed in the library. Although the library here is not as good as Kamar-Taj, it is not much worse, because there are many classic books of the wizarding world here. Usually, the wizards outside can only see a part of the outer layer, which are mostly some ordinary magic books in the Marvel world. Only students have the right to enter the inner library, which contains truly high quality and exotic magic books. And Strange was sent by the Supreme Sorcerer. Lockhart would naturally not be wronged, and gave his students the same treatment. The right to enter the depths of the library and read the magic books in the inner library is naturally included. At this moment, there are also scattered young wizards stopping in front of the bookshelves, seemingly searching for the books they want. And Strange slowly stepped forward, watching the titles of each book with his peripheral vision. He seemed to want to remember the names of all the books with his extraordinary memory ability to facilitate the subsequent plan. Suddenly, he paused, because he saw a book with a very interesting name. No, to be precise, it is a booklet, or a research report. Research and analysis of chaos magic and wizard bloodline. After a deep look, Strange continued to wander in front of other bookshelves. He also had to look for other suspected targets. Soon, he walked through the entire library. He picked up a book, and walked out of the library, heading towards the training room. He still had to complete the day's training course. In the Vincian world, there are punishments for students who skip classes. Time passed by minute, and a group of students left the depths of the library, and another group of students came in. The number of people coming and going was getting smaller and smaller. At the same time, the lights in the library gradually dimmed. It was late at night, and the door of the library was about to close. And at the moment when the lights in the library were completely turned off, suddenly, a transparent soul quietly emerged, as if it had a purpose, and flew to a bookshelf on the right. His eyes were fixed on a book on the bookshelf. A brief analysis of the relationship between chaos magic and the god of darkness, Sisson. Chapter 579. Doctor Strange is caught in the act. According to statistics, basically every dimensional god has a source of power. or it can be understood that occupying a certain source of power is a necessary condition for becoming a dimensional god. When the mage chooses power, the dimensional god gains faith and soul, and the attributes of power itself will have a certain impact on the mage's emotions, will and even soul. Therefore, the mages under the gods of order are mostly white wizards, and the faith mages under the evil gods of chaos are black wizards, which we call fallen mages. Here, we have to mention a powerful dimensional evil god, who is also the enemy of Vishanti, the god of black magic, Zisum. Like other gods, Zisum also occupies a source of power, chaos. But unlike other gods, because the concept of chaos is disordered, and it grows day by day and accumulates continuously, every time a trace of the concept of order and chaos is born, chaos will grow with it. He is one of the most mysterious, unpredictable, and huge root forces in the multiverse. Zisum can only occupy a part of it, but even if he occupies a part, he is extremely powerful among the dimensional gods. And Sithoun's strength, and the result that he did not fully grasp the concept of chaos, led to gods and deities in other dimensions trying to use the concept of chaos to become powerful gods in one fell swoop. And this touched Sithoun's taboo. As the first god to grasp the concept of chaos, he relied on his own power to continuously eliminate potential competitors. At the same time, he also used the concept of chaos he mastered to develop chaos magic as a source of power to exchange with potential believers. This is a relationship between chaos magic and Sithoun. To practice chaos magic, you must obtain Sithoun's permission. If you fail to obtain permission, you will be hunted down by Sithoun, the god of black magic. However, when you get permission, every bit of chaos magic power you practice, including your soul, will eventually belong to Sithoun. Practicing chaos magic is a road of no return. Later generations should remember this. Left hand note by Paul, the 56th generation inheritor of chaos magic. Turning the pages of the book one by one, Strange, who was in an out-of-body state, looked more and more serious. The whole book does not exaggerate the power and mystery of chaos magic. On the contrary, the writing style reveals objectivity and sadness. It seems that the author was desperate when writing the book. The whole book is basically a warning to readers. The only difference is that the whole book is filled with red fonts saying don't practice, don't practice. However, after reading the whole book, Strange did not give up his idea because of the author's warning. On the contrary, he began to think about how to avoid Sithoun spying and locking. As smart as he is, he naturally thought of Lockhart and let his student Wanda practice chaos magic. Then there must be a corresponding method. Otherwise, he would not let his students die. Therefore, when he gets the method, he will definitely be able to practice chaos magic and even become a powerful and unique god like Sithoun. Yes, Strange's performance at this moment is basically the same as that of most geniuses. Full of pride and arrogance. He thinks that for a genius like him, all difficulties are only temporary, and as long as he breaks through the difficulties in front of him, he will definitely be able to stand on the top and overlook everything. Without hesitation, Strange gently waved his transparent right hand, and a subtle soul power came out, closing the books and putting them back in place. With a thought, he stood up and floated to the bookshelf opposite in soul state. There was also a book related to chaos magic. Today, he came to the library to pave the way for tonight's action. In his mind, he had already memorized all the books on the bookshelf that were suspected to be related to chaos magic, waiting to look through them one by one. As for why he didn't take it back to his lounge to read, let's not talk about whether Lockhart allowed him to study chaos magic. Just say that the books in the library, basically every book has been cast. If you don't leave the library through formal channels, it will only trigger an alarm. So he took the soul state and devoted himself to the library to secretly study chaos magic. After all, when he talked about chaos magic before, Lockhart's refusal was quite obvious, and even the Supreme Sorcerer clearly stated that he did not recommend it. Soon, he finished reading the second book about chaos magic. But to his disappointment, most of the contents were describing words praising Sithoun, and the only useful ones were how to sacrifice Sithoun and obtain the seeds of chaos magic practice. So he came to the third and fourth books. Under the traction of an invisible force, the pages of the book kept turning, and one by one, the knowledge of chaos magic came into view. He saw the secrets of chaos magic, and also witnessed the cases of people who died badly because of practicing chaos magic, and knew the power of Sithorn, the god of black magic. This is him. After flipping through the 23rd book on chaos magic, he was about to go to the location of the 24th book as planned. Suddenly, Buzz, Strange, what do you feel? After reading these books, the transparent soul figure floated in the air and passed through the bookshelf. Suddenly, a plain and even calm word came to his ear. Suddenly, Strange was frightened and trembled all over. Whoosh! Without time to think, he mobilized all his soul power by instinct and kept shuttling forward. He wanted to escape from here by instinct. Although the other party already knew his name, he still didn't want to be caught. However, crack, crack, crack. The moment he ran away, the sound of the mirror shattering suddenly rang out. At the same time, not far from him, the originally flat space began to shatter like a mirror. He had no time to react, and instinctively went in mirror space. The next moment, boom. The library and the mirror space seemed to be divided into two from the middle, as if it was affected by some distance. Above the ground, a huge pillar soared into the sky, and Strange, as if his entire soul was restricted, fell in the middle of the huge pillar, motionless. Opposite him, Lockhart, wearing a dark green wizard robe, quietly watched him in the soul state. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of the whistling wind came from his ears, and the column under his feet kept shuttling upwards. Houses, tall buildings, flagpoles, and white clouds kept disappearing in his eyes. He was rising continuously, as if he wanted to pass through the atmosphere to reach the universe. Even in the soul state, Strange felt a little difficult to breathe. After an unknown amount of time, the rising column slowly stopped. A voice with the same tone rang in my ears. Tell me, Strange, what do you think of chaos magic? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580 Grindelwald. The Smuggle is interesting. Ah, Mr. Lockhart. I had some questions in class today, so I came to the library to take a look. After being caught on the spot, Strange looked around and hesitated. He had no intention of answering Lockhart's question. You have also read the taboos of chaos magic that I emphasized to you before. What do you think? Lockhart asked again calmly, with a tone of no doubt. It seemed that, if Strange didn't answer his question, it would not end. At this moment, Strange seemed to sense Lockhart's determination. There was no way, so he replied while thinking. Actually, I'm mainly curious about this chaos magic. Before, you said that chaos magic has various dangers, but I heard that Wanda is practicing it. So, I also came to the library to take a look and see what the thresholds of chaos magic are. As Strange said, he pulled Wanda out to make an excuse. It seemed to be an excuse for his next behavior. I looked around, and it seems that the main problem is the pursuit of the god of black magic, Sithorn. When I found out, I gave up the idea. In a few words, Strange seemed to be making a promise and expressing his attitude. Do you want to learn chaos magic? Lockhart asked again. His tone was flat. No. Strange shook his head and refused. I see that chaos magic is so difficult. I might as well practice the magic of Kamar-Taj. That's what he said, but if you are careful, you can find that his tone revealed his insincere meaning. Yes, Wanda can practice. Why can't he practice? It's just that he didn't find a way to cover up Sithorn's pursuit. But now, he who knows the times is a hero. Lockhart had emphasized many times before that he should not be allowed to contact him. This time he was caught on the spot. Even a fool would know that he should have a better attitude and try to get Lockhart to let him go. Strange, you are a genius. Lockhart said leisurely. The Sorcerer Supreme has repeatedly emphasized that your talent is indeed excellent. But the more genius a person is, the easier it is to find shortcuts and be impatient. You have to know that the reason why a genius is a genius is because he is still alive. A dead genius is not a genius. Hearing this, Doctor Strange's face froze and looked a little ugly, but he still didn't say anything. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that he shouldn't refute now. The Sorcerer Supreme let you come here and train you for a month. Of course, I will complete his orders. I don't care what you want to do, but within this month, you have to be quiet for me. After you leave, I don't care if you try to kill yourself. The cold words were spoken in an indifferent tone, and Strange nodded quickly after hearing them. He was relieved in his heart. No matter how unpleasant the words were, he should be able to let him go this time. Don't worry, Master Lockhart, I will definitely listen to the lessons carefully during this period. Hearing this, Lockhart waved gently. In an instant, his figure turned into scattered points of light and disappeared in a blink of an eye. At the same time, a plain voice sounded around. As a punishment for your unauthorized entry into the library, stay here for a day and reflect on yourself. As soon as the voice fell, Strange looked at the empty column. His face suddenly turned bitter. He took a step forward, looking at the bottomless white clouds. His body suddenly froze. It's too high here. Even if you don't have acrophobia, you will feel a huge pressure in your heart when you stay here. But fortunately, it's only one day. He meditated and practiced some magic messages by himself, and it passed quickly. But just as he was waving the hanging ring, the magic power in his body seemed to have no sense of anything and was completely out of control. His face suddenly turned bitter. At the same time, a ticking sound sounded. It began to rain lightly in the sky. The dense raindrops poured on the wizard's robe, and the feeling of being wet all over made Strange shudder. Alas, he knew that this punishment would not be so easy to avoid. He had to endure it. Fortunately, it was only 24 hours. At the same time, Lockhart, who had left the mirror space, returned to his office. In his office, Grindelwald was leisurely looking at the various research materials on his bookshelf. I'm back. Grindelwald smiled. It seems that everything should be resolved. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded helplessly and seemed a little speechless. If he still asked, how is the matter going? What is the attitude of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Hearing this, Grindelwald smiled and said, it seems that what you said is indeed correct. Nick Fury really knows the current situation. I see that his memory has been restored in his mind, and he knows what happened before. However, in front of me, he pretended that he didn't remember anything. TSK, this muggle is really interesting. Hearing Grindelwald's joke, Lockhart showed an expression of disbelief. Although their strength is average, they have a great influence in the world. With their help, I believe the difficulty of finding the fallen wizard will be greatly reduced. Hearing this, Grindelwald also nodded and expressed his agreement. The shield has finished the job, but are you sure you can handle Captain Marvel behind him? Grindelwald asked with some concern. Because he knew Captain Marvel's fighting power very well from Nick Fury and the Skrulls' memories. If Captain Marvel dealt with them, all their plans in the new world would be destroyed. This was unacceptable to Grindelwald, who had just entered the new world. He had just arrived not long ago, and he didn't want to return to the wizard world in disgrace. He was also planning to venture into the depths of the universe. Don't worry, I'll handle Captain Marvel's job. Just help me solve the problem of the fallen wizard, and don't worry about anything else. Lockhart said confidently, and Grindelwald nodded without saying anything. He changed the subject directly. You said before that you were interested in wizard blood. Here I have sorted out all the relevant information. You can take a look. As he spoke, Grindelwald waved his wand, and a maroon magic book appeared in the air, slowly floating towards Lockhart. Okay, thank you for your help. Lockhart replied with a hint of joy, and then, as if he had thought of something, he gave Grindelwald a suggestion. The wizard bloodline in our body is very important. The Supreme Sorcerer specifically emphasized this to me. I feel that you can focus on studying wizard bloodline in the later stage. The Supreme Sorcerer will not say meaningless words. Grindelwald nodded to Lockhart's suggestion and did not refuse. Finally, after a few words of small talk, he turned around and left. Lockhart focused his attention on the maroon book in front of him. He was very curious why the Supreme Sorcerer paid so much attention to his bloodline. Could it be that the future path is also in it? Chapter 581, SHIELD. At the center of the storm, S.H.I.E.L.D., Trident Building headquarters. In the office of the senior director, Nick Fury sat in his seat, looking at the analysis report in front of him. His face became very ugly. The spaceship on the back of the moon disappeared. It is impossible that it was driven away by someone, so there is only one possibility, that it was also destroyed by Lockhart's people. He just found a possibility of stealing wizards, but everything in front of him gave him a huge blow. If it weren't for Ms. Marvel behind him, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to escape this level so easily. However, the one who made Nick Fury feel the most slapped in the face was the wizard named Grindelwald. The other party trapped him and cleaned his memory, but the next day he came to him to discuss cooperation and help search for some wizards. If he didn't have the means to restore his memory, he might have helped Grindelwald. Damn, this is the first time that Nick Fury has been insulted so much in his history. The most angry thing is that he has to pretend that his memory has been completely cleaned and he has to help this Grindelwald do things. After all, the two sides are now in a cooperative relationship. Many special potions still depend on Lockhart and the Vincian world. Such compromise is quite unfair even for Nick Fury. Darn. There was a knock on the door, and as Nick Fury came in, Hill, the deputy director of SHIELD, entered the office with a document in his hand. Director, all the abnormal death cases in the past 20 days that you asked for have been sorted out. Hill entered the office and placed the document in front of Nick Fury. Nick Fury picked up the document and read it. According to the information provided by the wizard named Grindelwald, there is no doubt that these fallen wizards are cruel and good at using blood sacrifices. Then, there must be some clues in the abnormal death cases. Nick Fury was reading, and suddenly he frowned, looked up at Hill, who had not left, and asked in confusion, "Hill, what's the matter?" After hearing this, Hill, the deputy director, did not hesitate and asked directly, "Director, I hope to get your authorization. The World Security Council is very interested in wizards." Yes, Hill was arranged by the World Security Council to enter SHIELD as an ale. Although she admired Nick Fury, she still couldn't refuse the request of the World Security Council. Especially after the outbreak of the Battle of New York, the World Security Council received information about the appearance of wizards. The World Security Council was very interested in this kind of supernatural species in large quantities, as the S.H.I.E.L.D., which was involved with the most wizards, naturally became their way of obtaining information. After hearing the request of the World Security Council, Nick Fury couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. He was not worried that wizards would be affected by the World Security Council. But what if the World Security Council provoked or even tried to arrest wizards? Once the conflict between the two sides was triggered, the consequences would be disastrous. Because she had Captain Marvel behind her, she was able to escape. And if the World Security Council, which had no supernatural power behind it, dared to do so, according to the wizard's character, it might bring disaster to the whole family. And as an organization under the World Security Council, she could not escape the impact. Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Nick Fury said without a doubt, "I will give an explanation to the World Security Council later." It was really a rainy night when it leaked. All the troubles were mixed up. Nick Fury had a headache. "Okay, Fury." Hill couldn't help but remind him, "but try to be quick. The World Security Council must get the information about wizards this time. I'm afraid it's not that easy to get around." After hearing Hill's reminder, Nick Fury nodded to show that he understood, and Hill turned and left. Anyone can deliver a document. This time she came here mainly to deal with wizards. During the New York War, although many people lost their memories and forgot about the alien invasion, the scope involved was too large after all, and S.H.I.E.L.D. could not completely clean up all the follow-ups. Like the FBI and the CIA, they can more or less grasp certain information. It is difficult for S.H.I.E.L.D. to intervene. And now, as the first contact with wizards, S.H.I.E.L.D. is already at the forefront. I don't know how many organizations want to bypass S.H.I.E.L.D. and contact wizards. Of course, this also requires obtaining all the intelligence of S.H.I.E.L.D. The World Security Council is one of them, and it is difficult to do a direct rejection like the CIA. After all, this is their superior agency, and the annual funding comes from the World Security Council. London, England. Grindelwald strolled on the familiar streets, his eyes revealing complex thoughts. I really don't know what it would be like if Dumbledore came here. The two worlds actually have so many similarities. The Shard, Tower Bridge, Oxford Street. Apart from some details, basically the more famous buildings, shopping streets, etc. are all exactly the same. It really makes people think more. Tap, tap, tap. With subtle footsteps, Grindelwald walked to the end of a certain alley. Following the unfamiliar walls, he stopped and looked at them, and laughed. After all, it is different. There are no wizards in this world. Naturally, Diagon Alley does not exist. Then, Grindelwald turned and walked away. This time, he divined some traces of fallen wizards. So, he came to London, and waited for the opportunity. London, the Shard. If you want to talk about the tallest building in the UK, the 95-story Shard is it. Standing on its high floors, you can overlook the beautiful city scenery of London. At this time, at the top of the building, several wizards in black uniforms looked down at everything in front of them. David, are you sure you want to choose the blood sacrifice in London? Don't forget the London Temple. A fallen wizard on the side couldn't help but remind him. After hearing this, David said expressionlessly, London is the best choice. I know it's difficult to take down Cassilis in New York. As for Hong Kong, because of our previous actions, the vigilance is probably the highest now. Only the London Temple is the most suitable, and the other places are too ineffective. At this point, David muttered to himself, if you want to contact the power of the conceptual level, you can only choose the location of the three major temples. Mephisto, you really played a good chess game. You forced us to make a big fuss. Next time, I will definitely give you a deep impression. At the end, the voice became smaller and smaller, and several fallen wizards on the side didn't notice it at all. They are now focusing on the next blood sacrifice. It can't be blamed that they are concerned. If it is according to the original plan, I'm afraid that the whole of London will be used as a sacrifice. Alas, becoming a god is never easy. Now that you have already defected, don't worry about moral conscience. Chapter 582. Doctor Strange comes to the London Temple for training. Vincian World. Strange, come to Vincian World again next time you have a chance. By the way, you asked me to find 3 ingredients last time, but I'm still short of them. I'll send them to Kamar-Taj for you after I find them all. Strange, I look forward to meeting you next time. See you on the ring then. The 1-month period for further study in Vincian World has come to an end, and Strange should leave Vincian World and return to Kamar-Taj. At this moment, several friends who have a good relationship with him are saying their final goodbyes. Seeing these friends' enthusiastic farewells, Strange smiled, and at the same time he was very grateful. During this period of time, he wanted to know what Lockhart's status was in the eyes of these young wizards. Almost every wizard took Lockhart as his goal to practice and study. If Master Lockhart made public his previous experience of sneaking into the library, then his practice life in Vincian World might not be so good. Even friends who had a good relationship with him would choose to leave. To put it bluntly, Lockhart's preferences directly affected the preferences of all young wizards. Under this influence, they are not like fanatical believers. On the contrary, each of them maintains independent thinking and has his own preferences. To be honest, this state is a bit similar to the relationship between ancient followers. But it is more complicated and difficult to describe in words for a while. But it doesn't matter. I have to return to Kamar-Taj to study magic in the next stage. To be honest, I have gained a lot from practicing in the Vincian World this month. Whether it is learning spells or refining potions, he has gained a lot. Of course, chaos magic is also one of them. But he did not conduct research or practice during this period. He knew that Master Lockhart clearly expressed his disgust for practicing chaos magic, but he was not so arrogant as to continue to study chaos magic in the other's position. However, it would be fine when he returned to Kamar-Taj. Yes, he still did not completely give up chaos magic, although a large number of books warned of danger and Lockhart's warnings. But the more interested he was in chaos magic. Maybe this is a common problem of geniuses who have extraordinary confidence in themselves. In particular, the book clearly mentioned that chaos magic is the key to becoming a dimensional god. But the thought turned, and the hanging ring was swung, and a red flame-colored circular portal opened. Opposite was Kamar-Taj, and Strange turned around and waved to a few friends, then stepped into Kamar-Taj. England, London Temple. The weather in England is like a woman's mood, changing at any time. Originally, the sun was high outside, and the golden sunlight was generously sprinkled on every street. As a result, suddenly, dark clouds gathered. With the sound of ticking, heavy rain poured down. At this moment, Arnold, as the guardian of the London Temple, picked up a cup of coffee and sat quietly in front of the window, looking outside. Because of the heavy rain, pedestrians were hiding. Hearing the ticking sound in his ears, Arnold felt extremely comfortable and quiet in his heart. Familiar voices, familiar environment, and familiar coffee. Their London Temple is a blessing in disguise. Although there is an invasion of evil gods, compared with the losses suffered by the New York and Hong Kong temples, they basically have no magicians killed. At most, it was just that the magic power was consumed too much, and he was a little exhausted. He returned to normal early during this period, and the London Temple also returned to its previous state. It must be said that for the old Arnold wizard, a peaceful life is what he yearns for. After all, he is over 90 years old, and there are very few wizards of the same age as him in history. It is not because the lifespan of Kamar-Taj wizards is limited, although compared with other extraordinary lives, the lifespan of wizards is indeed a little short. But it is also much longer than that of ordinary people. There is no problem living for 200 years. The only problem is that the duty of Kamar-Taj wizards is to expel dimensional invasions, and fighting is basically indispensable. Basically, most wizards die in battle before they can live to the limit of their lives. Especially in the dimensional gaps of the frontline battlefield, there are basically deaths all the time. Therefore, Arnold still feels quite fortunate that he can live to this age. He now hopes that he will live past 100 years old and refresh the historical record of Kamar-Taj. Although he certainly cannot compare to the Supreme Sorcerer, he has left his name in the end. TSK, TSK, TSK. Arnold took a sip of coffee, and the sound of dripping rain rang in his ears. A comfortable smile appeared on his face. At this moment, suddenly, a red flame-colored halo suddenly emerged from the hall of the temple, and a wizard in a red cloak walked out of it. He looked around, as if he was identifying the target he was looking for. Soon he saw Master Arnold sitting by the window, and strode straight up to him. "Hello, Master Arnold, I'm Stevenson Strange, and the Supreme Sorcerer arranged for me to come to the London Temple to study with you." Looking at Strange in front of him, his eyes paused when he saw the red cloak on the other person. TSK, TSK, TSK. It seems that the Supreme Sorcerer thinks highly of this Strange, and actually gave him this cloak. With a flash of thought, Arnold pointed to the seat in front of his table, and motioned for him to sit down. As Strange sat down, the red cape behind him floated up slowly, as if it had life. It did not affect Strange's sitting at all. "I know about you, Master Strange." Erod waved his hand gently, opened a miniature teleportation aperture, and took out a cup of hot coffee and a small silver spoon from it. He placed them directly in front of Strange. "I heard many mages praise your air talent. You are simply the favorite of Vishanti," Arnold praised, and Strange on the opposite side also smiled after hearing it. Everyone likes to hear good words, especially when the other party is the guardian mage of the London Temple. As he said, Arnold picked up the coffee and took a sip. "A genius like you, I believe you will soon contribute to the dimensional invasion. I wonder what you want to learn when you come to the London Temple?" Arnold asked leisurely while drinking coffee. "I want to be able to enter the dimensional gap. I have heard many wizards say that the dimensional gap is like a meat grinder. All wizards will enter there. I also want to experience it and prepare for the future." Hearing this, Aurelio, who was drinking coffee, froze. "This is not the way to seek death. You are so weak, and you still want to enter the dimensional gap. In the end, I have to save you." He has no objection to Strange's self-destruction. But don't take him with you. He is still planning to live over 100 years old. Moreover, if the person the Supreme Sorcerer has chosen has an accident in the dimensional gap, even if he doesn't die, he will have to go to the dimensional gap to make up for his sins. This Of course there is no problem, but everything has to go through the process. I can understand your inner desire, Master Strange. You should play in London for a while and do some basic work. As for entering the dimensional gap, see the result of the application. Chapter 583 Grindelwald and the London Temple. Hello, sir. This is your coffee. Please enjoy. In a classic coffee shop, Strange sat at the table, looking at the ancient street outside through the glass beside him. Britain was once glorious, so naturally, they emphasized the aristocratic style in many things. That is, the British aristocratic style. It seems that this is the only thing that can prove their former glory in their declining era. Just like this coffee shop. Dark blue sofa, ancient brown piano, familiar piano music. Although the environment seems to be beautiful, Strange's mood at the moment is really average. Master Arnold actually adopted a delaying tactic against him, which he never expected. He just wanted to experience life in the latitude gap. Why did he try every means to stop such a simple thing? He also played a set of tricks of an old official in the officialdom for him. As soon as he asked, Arnold looked around and said that he was going through the process when he opened his mouth, and he kept his mouth shut to let him be patient. To be honest, Arnold's attitude made Strange feel cold inside. He was also going to enter the dimensional gap to try out the magic circle he had researched, whether it could use the chaos of the dimensional gap to isolate the prying eyes of the god of black magic, Sithan, to lay a foundation for his own practice of chaos magic. As a result, it was a bad start. Alas, there is no way. In the London Temple, if you want to enter the dimensional gap, you may really need the guardian wizard Arnold. Thinking about it, Strange shook the spoon in his hand and took a sip. Forget it, take your time. You have to eat one bite at a time, and you can't expect to become fat in one bite. Ding. Check out. He tapped the small bell next to his hand lightly, and the waiter next to him came over, took out a shilling, paid the bill, and turned to leave. At this moment, the rain outside had stopped not long ago, and you could clearly feel the moist air around you. Step, 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 step. Walking forward step by step, breathing the fresh air, Strange quietly admired this metropolis, and felt the prosperity that was different from New York. Just as he was walking on a certain street, suddenly, a subtle wave of magic power emerged, which attracted Strange's attention. In an instant, he closed his eyes slightly and dispersed his mental power. He felt everything around him and the abnormality. Step, step, step. With light steps, he suddenly jumped forward a few steps and walked to the entrance of a small alley. When Strange set his eyes on the entrance of the alley, he couldn't help but be very surprised. Teacher Grindelwald, why are you in London? Yes, the wizard in the alley had been seen in the Venetian world before, and even used to be their teacher before. Hey, Strange, I just said that I was familiar with you, but I didn't expect it was you. Grindelwald didn't answer, but said to himself. To be honest, he was quite impressed by this genius and wizard from Kamar-Taj. Of course, as the first pure Kamar-Taj system wizard he had seen, Grindelwald made friends with an inquiring look. Consciously take care of him, and at the same time, take the opportunity to study what is so special about the power of the gods. It must be said that the power of the gods should not be underestimated. He had just released some breath, and the other party sensed it. I just returned to the Venetian world not long ago, and I heard that you returned to Kamar-Taj. How is it? How do you feel? Grindelwald asked casually. It's okay. Many wizards take good care of me and have been training. Strange replied. Then what are you doing in London? Grindelwald guided. Nothing. Mainly the Supreme Sorcerer arranged for me to come to the London Temple for training. Oh, that's it. Grindelwald said with a smile. I heard that the guardian of the London Temple is Arnold, but he is an experienced old wizard. I believe that learning from him will definitely benefit a lot. Hearing this, although he knew that Grindelwald had no other intentions, he couldn't help but complain in his heart. Arnold, this old thing, is really slippery. However, he still had reason and did not vent his complaints. So he started to ask back, Teacher Grindelwald, what are you doing in London? The distance between the United States and London is not close. You've come so far, you can't be here for sightseeing. Nothing, just strolling around. London is my hometown, Grindelwald said meaningfully. Oh. Strange was a little surprised, but he didn't plan to continue to dwell on this topic. Okay, then I won't bother you. Strange said very politely, I have some things to do here, and I have to go back to the London Temple. Is that so? It just so happens that I also have to go to the London Temple. Grindelwald smiled and said, just the same way. Hearing this, Strange didn't doubt him and nodded, indicating that there was no problem. Then, he raised his arm, waved the hanging ring, and opened a door to the London Temple. Lifting his legs, stepping across, passing through the portal, and entering the lobby of the London Temple. And Grindelwald entered it. London Temple. At this moment, Arnold, the guardian wizard, was holding a book and reading it with relish. As a wizard, especially a wizard who wants to live a long life, learning more will definitely not be wrong. Kamar-Taj has abundant resources. It would be a pity if we don't make good use of them. Arnold has always thought so, so every time he went to the secret realm of good wizards, he never missed a chance to get the wool of Kamar-Taj. His library borrowing list basically maintained the maximum number of borrowings. Alas, there is no way, live and learn. Only when you learn more knowledge, you will not be at a loss when encountering unknown things. Under the leadership of Master Aloe, the habit of reading in the entire London Temple has become a trend. Even the Supreme Master once praised that under Aloe's leadership, the wizards of the London Temple have developed a good habit of reading frequently. This makes Aloe proud. Of course, he didn't tell anyone. All this is for the fun of gaining knowledge and to kill boring time. When he was reading with relish, suddenly, a familiar magical fluctuation emerged, which immediately made Aloe feel a little helpless. Strangers here again, probably for the problem of applying to enter the dimensional gap. Hey, such a young guy, does he have some patience in doing things? It seems that the most important point for the Sorcerer Supreme to send him to the London Temple is to hone his patience. With a flash of thought, Arnold raised his head and stared at the already open red flame transmission aperture. But to his surprise, there was a strange wizard following behind Strange. This made him curious and a little alert at the same time. He watched as the two of them talked and laughed and walked towards him, and he felt a little relaxed. Suddenly, he saw the strange wizard walking towards him quickly. Hello, Master Arnold. Lockhart asked me to discuss something with you. Chapter 584, Shield and London Temple both take action. Danielson Arnold, the guardian wizard of the London Temple. Male, 96 years old, the oldest wizard in the contemporary Kamar-Taj. Easygoing and seeking stability, the earliest verifiable record, known as a combat genius picked from thousands, and made a lot of contributions to the Latitude invasion. For some reason in the later period, he changed to focus on potions. Although his talent is average, and he consumes a lot of materials, there is still no sign of change. There is even a trend of intensification. Evaluation. There is no doubt that he is a gifted wizard, and because of his status and personality, he has many connections. It is recommended to make friends with him as much as possible. Looking at this white-haired old wizard, Grindelwald showed a gentle smile on his face. Master Lockhart? Hearing Grindelwald's words, Arnold's face was a little confused. But he didn't think much about it. After all, Master Lockhart had participated in the rescue of the London Temple before, and made great contributions in the invasion of the Only One, and the Supreme Sorcerer had also rewarded him. Since Lockhart introduced him, he was naturally willing to believe it. Is there anything urgent? Asked Master Arnold, but his tone was obviously filled with a hint of doubt. Of course. Grindelwald glanced and saw Strange not far behind him. He extended his mental power and transmitted his voice. It is related to the group of fallen wizards. Lockhart asked me to try my best to find the traces of the fallen wizards. I know through some special means that the group of fallen wizards may have come to London. If possible, I hope to work with the London Temple to hunt down and capture the fallen wizards. Hearing the word fallen wizard, Arnold's heart sank, and his face looked a little ugly. It has only been less than 2 or 3 months since it was peaceful. How could there be so many things? He opened his mouth to discuss the specific information with the wizard Grindelwald in front of him, and saw Strange who was curiously looking at him not far away, and he couldn't help but feel a headache. Master Strange, Please do me a favor and help me gather the battle wizards of the London Temple. Just say that we will meet in the conference room later." Looking at Strange, who was sent away by him, Arnold nodded slightly. A genius is a genius, just like when he was young. He is not a restless person. One has to experience some life and death, see some things, to know the beauty of life, to know the greatness of peace. Then, without thinking, he turned around and invited Grindelwald to sit down and said solemnly and seriously, "Grindelwald, you were invited by Lockhart, so I'm naturally willing to believe what you say next. But since I'm the guardian wizard of the London Temple, I must emphasize that we need to be responsible for our conversation next. If a large number of temple wizards are killed or injured because of your concealment, not only you, but also Master Lockhart will not be able to escape the blame. Before the next conversation, you must know this." Hearing this, Grindelwald couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, as if he felt the serious atmosphere, and nodded slowly to show that he understood. He was not prepared to solve the problem of the fallen wizard by himself. He was not that stupid. Obviously, this involved the entire Kamar-Taj matter. Lockhart did not emphasize that he must complete it independently, and this matter obviously involves the existence of dimensional gods. At this time, in London, if you don't look for the local snake here, the London Temple, you will be a real idiot. Well, he not only thinks of the London Temple, but also another local snake, SHIELD, whose strength in London is not small. TSK. It just so happens that the person behind SHIELD is about to come to Earth, hoping to contribute to the cause of peace on Earth. At this moment, Grindelwald's thoughts are running fast, constantly thinking about various possibilities. However, his face is also serious, and he said to Ellard in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I will synchronize first-hand information with the London Temple at any time. However, the information I have now is also limited, and I may need more help from the London Temple." Hearing this, Arnold on the opposite side moved his eyes slightly, as if judging the truth of what Grindelwald said. "In that case, Master Grindelwald, can you tell me the information you have?" "Of course, no problem. When I was in New York before, I traveled with Lockhart and found the traces of the fallen wizard together with the wizards of the New York Temple. But it was too late when we went there. It was over, and the other party had cleaned up a lot of traces. However, I personally know a little about divination, and later I found some subtle clues through some methods." At this point, Grindelwald's face became solemn. "In the end, all the clues pointed to London. Fate tells me that something big will happen in London." "Really?" Hearing this, Arnold couldn't help but look at Grindelwald with scrutiny. He didn't dare to have complete trust in what Grindelwald said. If the other party could know this through divination, then there is no reason why the divination wizards of Kamar-Taj did not expect it. It is even more impossible that they, the London Temple, did not receive the news. You know, Kamar-Taj is the frontline force of dimensional invasion, and the importance of information is self-evident. Therefore, the divination wizard plays a top priority role in it. If it involves a city, especially a large city like London, there can be no news, no signs. It is impossible that the Grindelwald wizard in front of him is stronger than the wizards of Kamar-Taj. "Okay, Grindelwald wizard," Arnold said in a deep voice, "I already know about the matter. Thank you for the information you provided. I will act according to your information later. If I get useful information, I will contact you." "Well, go back and verify it first. Is it true?" He knows several wizards who are good at divination. He has done divination several times. If there is a problem, he will definitely be able to see it. "We will talk about it later." Grindelwald on the opposite side heard the polite and official perfunctory reply from the other party. There was no reaction, just left away to find himself, and turned away. This time, he mainly wanted to make the London Temple move. The bigger the movement, the better. It is better to stimulate them. Otherwise, how can those damn corrupt wizards not find any movement? It's really difficult. Well, SHIELD also needs to make arrangements. He had to think of a suitable bait to stimulate them, otherwise, they would just slack off. Well, he should transfer more saints to London. Fate told him that what happened in London next would have a significant impact on them. Chapter 585 Ancient One. This is the last chance. How are the arrangements in the UK? What information do you have now? Nick Fury's voice was as serious and oppressive as ever, as if the other party owed him 1 million. Sorry, Director, no useful information has been collected yet. The intelligence officer on the other side replied nervously. It seemed that he knew that all the subsequent recovery would be enough to arouse the director's anger. Me 6. The tone was questioning, but there was no doubt in the tone. Ah, yes, Director. It seemed that she was shocked by her director's unconventional play. The young female intelligence officer was surprised and nodded quickly. Okay, go back and do your work. Nick Fury was silent for a while and said calmly. It seemed that it had no effect on him. However, when the intelligence officer walked out, Nick Fury's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Bang! A palm fell, and the table seemed to be overwhelmed. With a bang, it shattered. At this moment, Nick Fury didn't seem to care about the problem of the table. Instead, various ideas kept emerging in his mind. This round of the UK must be entered anyway, even though this is a scam. But who can resist the bait thrown by the other party? A complete way for an ordinary person to become a powerful wizard. Who can resist such a temptation? When I think of the previous situation under the magic of Grindelwald, Lockhart and others, I and others had no ability to resist. In addition to being frustrated, I'm more angry and fanatical. However, the danger is not small. London is a battlefield, and various forces have entered it. Their shield has limited power, not to mention that there is me 6 stirring up trouble. Not to mention taking advantage of the situation. It would be good if they don't get stabbed in the back by the other party. Alas, after all, I can't help it. Unfortunately, there is still a lack of high-end combat power. Tony and Hulk are already the strongest combat power that I can control. But the next ones are obviously a little insufficient. Those who hold the jade. Those who have strength are virtue. Those who have no strength are sin. At this moment, suddenly, Fury, what's wrong? Call me back. Hearing this voice, that I haven't heard for many years, but is still familiar. Nick Fury looked up in surprise, and sure enough, a familiar face appeared before him. Blue battlesuit, golden knee pads, dashing temperament. Kerala, you are finally back. Kamar-Taj. Ha, 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 ha. One by one, the young apprentices of the mages waved their long sticks, waving them forward vigorously, making ha 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 sounds from their mouths. They were training, conducting the most basic combat training. What they had in their hands were not magic weapons, but just wooden sticks, without any magic involved. No, to be precise, a magic related to gravity had been cast on the field where they were. It was visible to the naked eye that every time they swung their arms and hit forward, sweat flowed from their necks into their clothes like water. It seemed to illustrate the pressure they were under and the hard training they had. This was to temper their physical strength. As mages of Kamar-Taj, the strength of their bodies directly determined their capacity to accommodate the power of Vishanti. In other words, it directly determined their strength. Therefore, every apprentice wizard will go through this kind of hard training. Even after becoming a formal wizard, they will find ways to strengthen their bodies and improve their physical strength. Generally speaking, this kind of training is very torturous. However, they are very excited and even try their best in every swing and every training. Because the Supreme Mage is watching from the side. If they can get praise from the Supreme Mage, even if it is slight, it is a great honor and recognition for them. They are very hardworking and attentive, and they are all a group of good kids. The Supreme Mage suddenly said. And Lockhart, who was standing next to him, and also watching everything on the training square, nodded in agreement. That's right, Supreme Mage. Every drop of sweat they shed now will save their lives on the battlefield in the future. Yes, many people have said similar things like you. The Supreme Mage said with some emotion. But, Lockhart, do you believe this? Hearing this, Lockhart looked at the wizard apprentices who were swinging their long sticks forward and hitting hard. No reply. Yes, many people have said that the more sweat you shed now, the less blood you will shed in the future. Every drop of sweat you shed now will save your life in the future. But in fact, the talent of this group of wizard apprentices is average. Even if they train for another 10 years, they can't compare to what Strange gained in 1 month in the Vincian world. In the whole Kamar-Taj, except for the Supreme Sorcerer, the longest lived is Arnold, the Guardian Wizard of the London Temple, who is only 96 years old. According to the lifespan of Asgardians, this is still a child, like a 1 or 2-year-old child. Even with the short lifespan of wizards, Arnold should be in his prime. However, this is already the longest lived wizard in Kamar-Taj. You know, Arnold himself is a genius picked from thousands of miles away. And this group of wizard apprentices, although they have good talents, are far inferior to Cassilis, Arnold and others. Not to mention Strange, who is known as the illegitimate son of Vishanti. So, for them, the more you sweat now, the faster you will die in the future battlefield. Waste will live longer. Although this sounds a bit ironic, it is the reality of Kamar-Taj now. In the training square, the apprentice mages in training were breathing loudly. They were full of enthusiasm, and their eyes were filled with beautiful visions for the future. At this moment, at the edge of the square, the air around the Supreme Sorcerer was as cold as frost. Silence is sometimes a silent answer. Lockhart, Strange has gone to London. The Supreme Sorcerer spoke up and broke the silence. After hearing this, Lockhart was a little confused. Judging from the information channels he had in his hands, some important things might happen in London next, which were related to the group of fallen mages. But for the Supreme Sorcerer, even the dimensional gods were just playing around. What could a group of fallen mages do? His heart was full of doubts, and various possibilities kept coming to his mind. He remained silent. Lockhart, you should go too. This should be your last chance. Think more about what I told you. The words of the Supreme Sorcerer made Lockhart stunned. He opened his mouth to ask why. However, the moment he opened his mouth, the Supreme Sorcerer waved his hand gently. Instantly, but the scene changed, and everything in front of him was shattered, then reassembled, shattered again, and reassembled again. Time seemed to have passed for a long time, but it seemed to be only a moment. The next moment, he returned to his office. The familiar dark green wizard robe on the hanger, the magic suitcase on the corner, and the half-opened notebook on the old brown solid wood table in front of him. At this moment, Lockhart's eyes were a little confused. It seemed that he was still thinking about the Supreme Sorcerer's last words. What is the last chance? He didn't quite understand, or rather, he didn't want to understand. Chapter 586, Asgard establishes diplomatic relations with the Vincian world. Vincian world, teleportation square. Buzz. Brilliant red flames suddenly appeared, forming teleportation circles. Mages from Kamar-Taj, New York, London, Hong Kong, and other places came out one after another. They had been here countless times, and they didn't care at all. The elf robots flapped their wings and flew towards them. It seemed that they also knew the personalities of the mages in front of them, and knew that they didn't want to communicate more. These elves followed silently behind, without speaking, unless the other party asked. Otherwise, they would not have any answers, nor would they provide any guidance services. It seemed that they were really afraid of angering the other party. They are the product of the combination of technology and magic. At Lockhart's request, they established files for each major customer. I dare not say that it is very thorough, but the general personalities of all the mages who came in to broadcast can be inferred. Therefore, there are these elves with extremely personalized services. This is also the Vincian world, where many mages feel comfortable. Mages are different from ordinary people. The older the mage, the more eccentric his personality may be. Studying magic, serving the gods, tempering the body, fighting in dimensions. All these things, even if the personality is good, will change in a weird direction. Many mages in Kamar-Taj are eccentric, and don't like to talk too much. And if these robots keep introducing themselves next to them, or even try to explore some information about each other, some mages with violent tempers may smash them to pieces with the magic. Mages with better personalities will also cast spells to restrict the robots from following. After all, they come to the Vincian world just to buy materials, or use the channels of the Vincian world to find some knowledge and intelligence for trading. They are not submissive characters. At most, they don't do anything else for Lockhart's face. Besides, some powerful mages don't need Lockhart's face. They serve the gods and guard the world, and personal grudges are meaningless. Therefore, after one or two such accidents at the beginning, Lockhart put forward strict requirements in this regard. Use the big data of the science and technology world in the network. to synchronize all information in time to ensure that such errors rarely occur in the later stage. Do the best in these details. This is why the Vincian world is the first choice of many mages. Therefore, it naturally becomes another resource gathering center in a sense. Today, many mages came to the teleportation square, and the number of mages is more than 2 or 3 times more than before. After leaving the teleportation square, many mages stood in the cafe, tea house, and meditation hall not far away. They seemed to be waiting for something. If you look at the entire teleportation square from a high altitude, you will find that the widest street leading to the teleportation square is full of various gorgeous decorations. On the edge of the street, it seems that huge red banners can be clearly seen at every distance. Although the contents of these banners are more or less different, the general meaning is the same. Welcome Asgard to the Vincian world. Yes, there are so many mages coming to the Vincian world teleportation square today. It is because they received the news a week ago. The founder of the Vincian world, Master Lockhart, has a close relationship with Thor, the great prince of Asgard. Therefore, the Vincian world will open a space channel to and from Asgard. This is not a one-time thing, but a lasting one. Although they don't know how the Vincian world reached an agreement with Asgard, they understand that the Vincian world will welcome Asgard's resources, as well as more Asgard warriors and mages. This is enough to attract many mages in Kamar-Taj. Although Asgard is not unfamiliar to Kamar-Taj, it is also relative to those older mages. For most ordinary mages, especially mage apprentices, it is a new thing. It is equivalent to an ancient country from the book entering reality. It is enough to attract their attention. At this moment, Cassilis of the New York Temple and the law enforcement elder Byron are sitting in a leisure tea room not far from the teleportation square. They are drinking tea and chatting. TSK. Lockhart is a big deal. I really don't know how he managed the relationship with Asgard. Byron took a sip of tea and said in admiration, I know something about this. Cassilis said with a smile, this is inseparable from the Asgard Thor. To be honest, I was a little surprised that Lockhart and Thor had such a good relationship. I thought they were just quite close. I didn't expect that they could open up a long-term space channel. The eldest prince of Asgard. Byron smacked his lips, as if he was savoring the taste of the tea just now, or sighing, I have heard that Thor is extraordinary and brave. Well, Thor's recklessness is also well known in many worlds. But I never expected that this reckless guy could also facilitate such an important thing. Opening up a trade route. This involves all aspects. To be honest, Byron is still a little puzzled. You know, Odin, the father of the gods, rules the 7 realms, and Asgard is also famous for its arrogance. Not only is it arrogant, but it is also arrogance. To put it bluntly, it is rich, and it is also quite arrogant. It looks down on other weak races, and only the strong can be in their eyes. However, this is normal. After all, this is all the result of Asgard's hard work along the way. He killed countless races, defeated countless invasions, and robbed countless wealth. For example, the overlords in the universe were once killed at their doorsteps by the young Odin with the Rainbow Bridge, and finally had to choose to cede land and pay compensation for mercy. TSK. The Vincian world actually opened a trade route with Asgard. What is this? This is no longer just waiting to make money. It's like wealth jumps into the house by itself, and it also calls friends to come over. Well, this is also what Byron couldn't figure out. Opening up trade routes does not have many obvious benefits for Asgard, because they already have a huge amount of wealth. At most, the goods in the Vincian world are novel. But for the Vincian world, the benefits are too great. This inequality between the two sides is really puzzling. And Asgard doesn't seem to be so easy to talk to. It's because the Grand Prince of Alaska has a good relationship with Lockhart. If the relationship is good, it shouldn't be like this. But he couldn't figure it out, and finally Byron could only believe this explanation. Because he really couldn't think of any answer. It can only be that Odin, the father of the gods, dotes on the eldest prince, so he would agree to such a condition. Otherwise, no matter what precious treasures there are in the Vincian world, or for other reasons, with the character of the Asgardians, it is normal to come directly to the door to rob. Don't think so much. Cassilis raised his teacup and took a sip. In any case, I can get Asgard's resources through the Vincian World channel in the future. Maybe I can also meet some friends in Asgard. Hearing Cassilis say this, Byron nodded and started talking about other things. However, from the corner of his eyes, he looked at the teleportation square not far away from time to time, which shows that he is still interested in the arrival of Asgard. Of course, the mages sitting in the nearby leisure tea houses, cafes, libraries, etc. are all very interested in Asgard's affairs. Asgard, Rainbow Bridge. Like a rainbow, on the rainbow bridge with colorful streamers. Thor, the god of thunder, was wearing golden armor and holding Mjolnir, the hammer of thunder, in his hand. He was surrounded by many Asgardians. Among them were strong men in armor and female wizards in robes. Your Highness, is the Vincian world really that fun? Your Highness, what's the difference between their place and Asgard? The closest to Thor were a group of young women in gorgeous clothes and exquisite looks. The surrounding warriors, seeing these beauties, gave up their positions like gentlemen. And seeing Thor, who was surrounded in the middle, being asked questions constantly, and trying to answer questions, all showed a smile that all men understood on their faces. The eldest prince, if you understand, so don't say more. At this time, if they go over, it will only make these women jealous. There is no ordinary woman who can stand on the rainbow bridge now. Ordinary people can't stand here, let alone surround it. However, not all the beauties surrounded Thor. At this moment, Thor's fiancée, Sif, the goddess of land and harvest, stood not far away, looking at Thor surrounded by beauties. There didn't seem to be much jealousy in her eyes. She probably knew that no matter how these beauties pestered Thor, they would not be in Thor's eyes. What she was thinking about now was how to discuss trade with Lockhart of the Vincian world. Yes, this time, she was the messenger for both sides to communicate. To be honest, this was very unexpected for Sif. Because this time, Odin, the great father of the gods, did not seem to intervene too much, and did not even send some old ministers to come forward. Just let the younger generation, who had a good relationship with Thor, deal with it. And I also became the messenger representing Asgard. As for Thor, the identity of the eldest prince was enough. The key figure of this mission, Gilderoy Lockhart. Sif had seen it before, when Thor was punished, and fell to the earth. She saw such a wizard. The two sides met only once, and there was no meeting after that. It was also constantly mentioned by Thor. What impressed Sif the most was the magical potion in Lockhart's hand. Whether it was for treating injuries, or restoring magic power, it was indeed unique. However, the impression ended here. Like most Asgardians, they recognized warriors more. Especially the fierce fighting scenes with fierce punches and every move. They liked it very much. Even women like her. Friendship is earned through fighting. This is a truth recognized by Asgardian warriors. As for mages who lack close combat ability and can only attack from a distance, well, it can't be said to be rejected, but there is still some contempt. Sorry, Lockhart was such an image in Sif's eyes before. Very much like the mages who do logistics support work in Asgard. However, it is said that the Kamar-Taj mages on Earth are all good at close combat and have good physical fitness. Maybe there will be unexpected surprises? Sif thought silently in her heart. But she also knew that she couldn't let her inner prejudice go. After all, this was an envoy in the name of Asgard. No matter what, we can't embarrass Asgard. Not to mention that Lockhart and Thor have a very good relationship. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but look at Thor, who was still surrounded by beauties, and sighed. Why does it feel like such a serious matter has changed when it comes to her? Why does it seem like a large tour group going out for a trip? Is it my fault for taking over for the first time? Or is it because Thor's charm is too great? At this moment, suddenly, Sif, the time is up, and it's time for others to prepare. Heimdall's voice sounded, and Sif looked at the guardian of the rainbow bridge in front of her with chaotic eyes and nodded gently. Then, Sif raised the broadsword in her hand high, and a firm and powerful voice came out. The space shuttle is about to begin. The honor guard returns, and all warriors assemble. Get ready to set off. Midgard Universal World. The loud voice sounded, and everyone present was slightly stunned. After reacting, they immediately dispersed around. The beautiful women surrounding Thor also stood on the edge of the rainbow bridge. With his hand slightly raised, the magic power bestowed by the world tree flowed. A bright flower basket appeared in his hands, and at the same time, wreaths, or flowers began to appear on his neck and wrists. The fragrance of flowers gradually spread around. In a flash, on both sides of Thor, there stood two teams of honor guards like goddesses among flowers. Proud. Holy. You can watch from a distance, but not play with them. These are the words that represent their image at this moment. It is completely opposite to the lively women who were chattering and asking questions around Thor just now. TSK 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 TSK. I can only say that women are very fickle. No, they are very good at acting. At the same time, the Asgardian warriors who were chatting with their chests crossed just now are now wearing armor and carrying long swords on their waists. They stand in a neat line with a serious face. It can be said that their faces are full of heroic spirit, and they look mighty and unyielding. At this moment, Thor strode forward with Thor's hammer in his hand, and stood side by side with Sif at the front. It seemed to explain the status of both parties on this mission. Trample. 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 The warriors stepped in unison. The gorgeous and holy guard of honor of the goddess of flowers moved forward with flower baskets. Thor, wearing a red cloak, strode forward with Sif, who was also wearing golden armor. At this moment, it seemed to show the majesty of Asgard. At the same time, Heimdall, who was not far away, saw this, raised the rainbow sword in his hand high, and thrust it down, calling, "Rainbow Bridge." Rumble. Above the sky, a huge energy wave rose, and a huge colorful light came down, carrying everyone, teleported to the distance. Destination, Midgard, the world of all things. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587. Welcome to the Vincian World. Vincian World, Senlo Avenue. The straight Senlo Avenue divides the vast Vincian world into two districts, East and West. The West District focuses on trading with all kinds of magic items, precious materials, including magical creatures, magical animals, magic inheritance, etc. The East District focuses on leisure, fighting, games, movies, covering ancient and modern times, including some typical games of wizard civilization, and everything is available here. Well, it is expected that Asgard's games will also be added in the future. Vincian World is a newly built large city with commerce as its theme. It is full of vitality and is changing all the time. It is no exaggeration to say that it is changing with each passing day. At this moment, both sides of Senlo Avenue can be said to be red flags fluttering. A large number of words welcoming Asgard keep appearing. The shops on both sides of the street are open for business, and a large number of wizards and robots can be seen moving back and forth with the naked eye. They seem to be very excited too. Yes, the people from Asgard are here. They can't come empty-handed. After entering the store, they can't leave empty-handed. It is said that the people in Asgard are very rich. If we don't make a big profit this time, wouldn't it be a big loss? It's better to earn some magic resources unique to Asgard. At this moment, there are not only mages waiting on the street, but also some ordinary people. No, to be precise, it is the spy organization S.H.I.E.L.D. from the ordinary world. They have a close relationship with Lockhart, the founder of the Universal World. When the Universal World was not yet opened up, they had already obtained the magic card and even sent their own agents to try to learn magic. Although the harvest is very few, after all, through this way, it can be regarded as a preliminary entry into the extraordinary world. To be honest, many agents are already satisfied. They don't want their souls to be extracted or tortured by mages. Completing S.H.I.E.L.D's tasks and seeing magical magic are enough to brag about to death when they are old. At this moment, among the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, there is a woman in dark blue clothes. If Lockhart comes over and sees this familiar square face, how can he not know? S.H.I.E.L.D's biggest backer Captain Marvel is back. At this moment, Carol Danvers looked around at the bustling shops with great interest. She was even more curious about the banner with the name of Asgard on it. As a cosmic superhero, she knew the dominant civilizations in the universe very well. Among them, Asgard, an ancient and powerful civilization, was naturally no exception. But the more she knew, the more Carol couldn't believe what she saw. The Asgardians were warlike, predatory, and even arrogant. They only had one word for weak civilizations. That was surrender. If they hadn't surrendered, they hadn't fought enough. The young father of the gods, Odin, fulfilled this sentence completely. Among the many battles, those who survived surrendered. As for those who didn't surrender, the whole tribe was exterminated together. If the Vincian world surrendered to Asgard, this would be normal. But now, Asgard has established diplomatic relations with the Earth, not the Vincian world. Carol really couldn't believe it. What is this? Tigers and cats make friends? Or is it the weasel paying New Year's greetings to the chicken? The more Carol thought about it, the more puzzled she was, and the more interested she became in the Vincian world. She had just finished maintaining a dangerous event in the universe when she received a message from Nick Fury asking for help. How could she not go back to her hometown to see if her old friend had a problem? What if the whole Earth had a problem? This was her original hometown. So she rushed back as fast as she could. Then, Nick Fury introduced her to the wizard professor. A series of information such as magic, wizards, the Vincian world, Kamar-Taj, etc. came into view. However, this seemed so common in Carol's eyes. After all, extraordinary power is not the only one in the universe. Every race and every force has more or less relevant accumulation. Magic is no exception. Carol has even seen the entire magic planet, and the civilization on the planet is also a pure magic civilization. Therefore, Carol is not unfamiliar with magic, but the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have never seen the world before. Or rather, this was the first time they had seen such a large-scale event held in the universal world. A large number of magic resources, a vast amount of magic goods, and a crowd of wizards. The prosperous scene in front of her made Carol even more interested in Professor Lockhart. According to the information provided by Fury, Professor Lockhart had only been in business for a year, and he had already reached such a level. He even began to establish diplomatic relations with Asgard. Anyone would be interested in the founder of the universal world. Ms. Carol, is there anything else you want to see? Coulson asked as he followed Carol out of a magic shop. This person was someone that his director had ordered to be taken good care of, so Coulson dared not be careless. Go to the library and read the introduction in the books, Kirala said, and by the way, let's wait for the arrival of Asgard together. She looked at the magic materials just now, and found that many of them contained strange auras. She had never seen them before, but they all revealed novelty. However, what impressed her the most was the herb that looked like a baby. This thing almost made Carol unable to tell the difference between animals and plants. Yes, the store she just left was the store that specialized in potion materials in the Harry Potter world. And the potions in the Harry Potter world, as we all know, are notoriously weird. After hearing this, Coulson nodded and said nothing. He then took Captain Marvel Carol Danvers to the library. Asgard's arrival was such an important matter, how could S.H.I.E.L.D. not send people to obtain more professional intelligence? As for Carol's request, just listen and do it. After all, the director of his own department had instructed to entertain them well, especially those related to wizard professors. So basically they were all green lights and released. Not to mention, it was just to take Carol to the library to read books. Teleportation square. Boom. The colorful streamer flickered, and a huge torrent of energy came crashing down. In the colorful torrent, a large number of human figures were looming. As the energy torrent slowly faded away like smoke, a heroic and neat team came into view. Thor, wearing a red cape, stood proudly, and Sif, beside him, held a long sword and wore golden armor. On both sides of the two, the proud and holy flower goddess on a guard raised her right hand slightly, and pink petals slowly fell around. Behind Thor, the warriors of Asgard stood upright and proudly. It seemed that they represented Asgard at this moment. Seeing this scene, the wizards who had been waiting in the distance chattered and discussed. At the same time, Lockhart brought several of his friends and students and slowly landed on the teleportation square. Compared with the magnificent and gorgeous power of Asgard's arrival, Lockhart's side was a bit shabby. However, To be honest, if you really want to make a big scene, you can do whatever you want with the resources you have in your hands now. There will even be special planners to plan. However, it really makes no sense. Asgard is the protagonist this time, so no matter what is inside or outside, it must be given enough. Hi, Thor. He strode forward and gave Thor, who was in the front, a big hug according to Asgard customs. Welcome to the Vincian world. You must stay longer this time. I must treat you well. Hearing Lockhart's hearty voice, Thor showed a happy smile on his face. Of course, of course. Thor laughed a few times and said with a haha, this time I'm specially prepared to visit the Vincian world. Last time, he said that he wanted to have a good time in the Vincian world. As a result, the royal family urged him to go back directly. However, Lockhart did not forget what he had to do, and he told his father, the king, and his mother directly. There was also this scene now. These wizards are also my friends, from Kamar-Taj. Caecilius, the guardian wizard of the New York Temple, Byron, the finger elder of Kamar-Taj, and my good friend Grindelwald. Lockhart took the opportunity to introduce these friends of his. People like Caecilius and Byron were sitting in the tea room, but Lockhart saw them and invited them over. Caecilius and others would not refuse, not to mention Grindelwald. He was now constantly looking at the group of strong Asgardian warriors behind him. Let's go, Thor. We have prepared a welcome party for you. Lockhart laughed and said, wine and food, everything is ready. Hearing this, Thor smiled and nodded without hesitation. Sif, who was standing by, was slightly stunned when she saw the exchange between the two sides. He thought that the Vincian world would adopt the same attitude. Even the other party would take out a parchment or a contract. The two sides exchanged and established diplomatic relations between the two forces. But Lockhart's attitude, like friends chatting with each other, caught Sif off guard. Sif, long time no see. After chatting with Thor for a few words, Lockhart also greeted Sif next to him. I just heard from Thor that you are the envoy to the universal world this time. You and Thor are the first Asgardian friends I know. You are welcome to come to the universal world at any time in the future. All the playing fees are free. Hearing this, Sif couldn't help but recall the previous battles between the two sides to deal with the destroyer armor together. A smile appeared on her face unconsciously. Well, for wild men like Asgard, you can't talk too much about interests with them. If you want to talk about past battles and friendship. Sure enough, this trick is always effective. The Asgardian warriors behind saw that Lockhart, the master of the universal world, had such a good relationship with their prince and the future Queen Sif. As his face changed slightly, his inner pride began to slowly fall. After all, he is a good friend of his eldest prince. No matter who he is proud of, he can't be proud of the eldest prince's friends. Sif, since you are the envoy, this is the bilateral trade agreement discussed with Thor before. Lockhart took out a piece of parchment and gave it directly to Sif. I basically didn't make any changes. Take a look. If there are any changes, you can change them at any time. Just tell me at the end. Hearing this, Sif's eyes were full of surprise. This seems to be completely different from the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two forces in his imagination. But think about it. Trust. This is the trust in friends. Suddenly, Sif's good impression of Lockhart in her heart rose. Thor, who was standing aside, patted Lockhart's chest after seeing such a free and easy Lockhart, and his eyes were also satisfied. This is a friend. There is no need to calculate each other for those petty interests. Lockhart is full of trust in himself. He is worthy of being his good friend. And Lockhart sensed the change in their attitudes and was quite satisfied in his heart. The so-called agreement is important, but it is not important. Because the agreement itself is meant to be torn up. For Lockhart, as long as he maintains a good relationship with Thor as the future god king of Asgard, then even if the agreement is torn up, there is no need to be afraid. Grasp the key points, grasp the key points. Now the focus is not on the treaty clauses in the agreement, but on the relationship between the two parties. As he said, Lockhart pulled Thor, Sif and others out of the teleportation square. At the same time, Thor also greeted the honor guard behind. Lockhart walked forward first. As his own prince and envoy left, To be honest, the group of Asgard honor guards who had just arrived in the Vincian world were stunned and a little at a loss. But then, some of Lockhart's students came forward and communicated with these warriors from Asgard and the beautiful honor guards. Soon, the two sides seemed to communicate, and the warriors and beauties dispersed. Following Lockhart's students, they also left the teleportation square tacitly and walked towards Senlo Avenue. Captain Marvel, who was not far away, looked at the scene in front of him. Suddenly, he didn't know what to say. Is this the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two forces? Why does it feel like a joke? Or a meeting between good friends? Compared to Captain Marvel's confusion, Coulson on the side was full of admiration. He seemed to understand Lockhart's diplomatic strategy. Seeing Captain Marvel next to him who was surprised by the scene in front of him, Coulson explained in a low voice, "Ms. Carroll, Lockhart's move is truly smart. Don't look at him not reading any agreement. It seems that he has completely left it to the Asgardians to make the decision. However, you also saw how much trust the Asgardian prince and the envoy have in Lockhart's actions just now. With this kind of trust, the so-called agreement is nothing more than some words on a piece of straw paper. This Professor Lockhart is a truly smart man. He sees the essence of this establishment of diplomatic relations clearly." Chapter 588 Welcome to Asgard's Dog Owner. Is Asgard strong? As the overlord of the universe, it is very powerful. On Earth, only the Supreme Sorcerer has the ability to compete. As for the Vincian world, although Lockhart thinks he is quite powerful, he is certainly not as strong as Asgard. This time, Asgard chose a very formal process of trade and diplomatic relations. To be honest, it was beyond Lockhart's expectation. After all, with his current strength, unless the Supreme Sorcerer supports him, he can't be equal at all. And when Asgard chooses to descend in the most dignified way, of course, Lockhart can choose a more solemn way of treatment, such as calling many students to line up, or forming a robot army to welcome. At worst, he can also form a specific scene, by controlling the Vincian world. But, is Lockhart stupid to do this? Asgard's strength itself is beyond doubt. If he is still prepared to overshadow the other party, arouse the other party's desire to win. Even if Lockhart and Thor have a good relationship, the subsequent trade will inevitably be affected. Therefore, he chose the most gentle way, chatting about family matters, talking about the past, and calling for friendship. Through this method of using softness to overcome hardness, Asgard was able to show off his power. At the same time, the relationship between the two sides was brought closer, ensuring that the subsequent trade process would not be affected in any way, and would even be better. As for the face of the world of all things, sorry, Lockhart has always valued actual benefits the most. Face is naturally good, if it is available, but it doesn't matter, if it is not. What do you think the large research institute he established is consuming every day? It is all real money and silver resources. To be honest, the plan he is going to start next will consume even more resources. At this time, Asgard came over, which was tantamount to making Lockhart more confident about the next plan. The local tyrants in Asgard are not called for nothing. Back then, Thor, the dog tyrant, gave all the destroyers to himself without any care. But he made a fortune. Now, he just hopes that the local tyrants in Asgard will spend money well. Open the door and you will be a guest. Welcome the dog tyrants of Asgard. At this moment, the original Asgard warriors and the beauties of the ceremonial staff team followed the instructions and entered Senlo Avenue, looking at the prosperous shops on both sides of the street. When they saw the red banners hanging above these shops, they could not help but nod with great satisfaction. They all welcomed Asgard to come, and this attitude made them feel proud. The favorability towards the world of all things and the shop in front of them suddenly increased. Seeing this, the guide next to him immediately began to gently introduce this store to sell some exquisite magic toys. This immediately made the Asgard beauty next to him blink. 2 or 3 sentences made a very beautiful picture. The beauty entered it, and the Asgard warriors followed closely. Then, the sickle was raised high, and the leaks trickled. These dog owners from Asgard walked out of the store with a bunch of magic weapons, toys, or potions. The shop owner sent them to the door, waving his hands with tears, and shouting welcome to come next time. Well, at that moment, I made 10 times the profit with tears. It's a loss. The price should be doubled. As expected of a dog owner, each of them exudes the aura of a local tyrant. The Vincian world is very large, and soon, the beauties and warriors from Asgard were gradually diverted. They were attracted by various shops, leisure places or restaurants in the Vincian world. When Captain Marvel Carol Danvers, who was watching nearby, saw this scene, she was stunned. It turns out that leeks can be cut like this. Seeing this, Coulson on the side couldn't help but show envy on his face. Then, hey, director, pie in the sky, pie in the sky. Hurry up and bring all the guns, toys, and all kinds of fun things we sell to the universal world. Put them in our store. These Asgardians are too rich. Whether our shield can get rich and enter the extraordinary in this wave depends on them. Ignoring Captain Marvel, Coulson made several phone calls in succession, reporting the news to the director and giving orders to his men. Hurry up and prepare the goods. Hurry up and prepare the goods. God knows when these Asgardians will be cut off by other peers. The sooner they are cut off, the sooner they will make a fortune. At the same time, Lockhart saw the hot scene of Asgardian consumption through the universal world and nodded with great satisfaction. However, soon, he focused his attention on Thor, Sif, and the three warriors of Asgard on the opposite side. Vorstater, Fandral, Hagen, long time no see, but you are still as heroic as ever. At the table, Lockhart greeted the three warriors of Asgard. Hearing Lockhart's praise, the three of them smiled. Long time no see, Lockhart. I didn't expect that you would create such a large world of all things in such a short time. Vorstater looked around the huge and luxurious Cloud restaurant and said with some emotion, "It's just luck. It's just luck." What can Lockhart say about this? He can only be humble. But Thor on the side didn't let Lockhart off like this. How can it be luck? Don't be modest, Lockhart, Thor said with a smile. My father praised you not long ago. He said you are a rare wizard in the 9 realms. Hearing this, Lockhart's expression moved slightly. Odin, the father of the gods, knew him and praised him. Such a person would never be bored and praise others for nothing. Come, sit down and eat. Lockhart did not respond, but just asked everyone to sit down, try the magical food of our Vincian world. Many wizards like it very much. Of course, there is also wine. At this point, it seemed that some keywords were triggered. Various elves flew out from the air around, holding plates and strong liquor, and slowly landed on the table. Smelling the strong aroma of wine, Thor and the three warriors of Asgard suddenly brightened their eyes. There is no warrior in Asgard who doesn't love wine. Thor directly picked up a bottle of strong liquor, opened the lid, and did not pour it into the wine glass, but started blowing it directly. The three warriors of Asgard, including Sif, did the same. Gulp. The strong liquor in the bottle decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the gurgling sound of swallowing continued to sound. Good wine. Bang. After Thor finished it in one gulp, he exclaimed, and then threw the bottle in his hand on the ground with force, making a bang. The other three warriors did the same. Well, this is a custom of Asgard. Lockhart, of course, followed the local customs and smashed the bottle after drinking. Then, he let it go and invited everyone to eat and drink while chatting. It must be said that eating and drinking is indeed the best way to build relationships. The relationship between Sif and the three warriors has obviously improved a lot. Thor on the side also let go, drinking wine, eating meat, and chatting loudly. For a while, laughter rang out one after another. Suddenly, by the way, Lockhart, we may have to stay on Earth for a while this time. Father has given us a mission. Chapter 589 Captain Marvel, I want to see Lockhart. Dear guest from Asgard, take a look at these technological weapons from Earth. The heavy machine guns known as the Death Vortex just press lightly, and in an instant, a large number of bullets will be sprayed out like a storm, crushing all the enemies in front. Dear guest, take a look at this weapon from the same series, the Hell Grenade, which does not require magic, does not require any form of energy, and only needs a light button. Buy it, this one, except for these two, all the others, send them to me. The red-haired strong man from Asgard pointed at these two small and exquisite weapons and said casually, okay, sir. In an instant, the shield agent showed an ecstatic expression on his face. Prepare them for you immediately. As expected of a big dog owner from Asgard, he actually bought everything. And even when he raised the price 10 times, Chief Coulson was right. We deserve to get rich. Stock up, and stock up quickly. When the SHIELD agent thought about the approximate amount of his sales commission, he couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Sir, your consumption amount is 1.6 million magic points after rounding off. At this moment, the SHIELD agent's face showed deep affection. Since the opening, all the sales amount added up is not as much as this amount. After hearing this, the red-haired strong man didn't care about such a huge amount and waved his hand. He put some mineral stones, herbs, and some gold coins on the counter. Order some. The SHIELD agent saw this. His face did not change, and his eyes were on the elf next to the red-haired strong man. The elf immediately flew forward, his eyes slightly, with a faint silver light, and at the same time, flew in front of the mineral herbs and gold coins, reaching out to touch them gently. Soon, the elf continued to fly back into the air and said loudly, "The goods brought by Peters, the distinguished guest from Asgard, are valued at 1 million magic points according to the valuation of the universal system." Then, the elf paused for a moment, and continued to say to the red-haired strong man, "According to the order of Mr. Lockhart, the Lord of all things, all the consumption amounts of guests from Asgard in the past 3 days will be discounted by 50%. Mr. Peters, you only need to pay 800,000 magic points. Do you agree with this transaction?" Yes, the people from Asgard have just come to the universal world. How could they have magic points from the universal world in their hands? If he applied for model cards for them one by one, and then exchanged them for super rebates, the process would be too cumbersome. Therefore, following their guidance, the elf naturally took on the heavy responsibility of valuation and transfer. Stimulate the wild consumption of the Asgardians. After hearing this, the red-haired strongman Peters couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. Lockhart, the Lord of all things, is worthy of being the best friend of the prince. He is really generous. The SHIELD agent opposite did not change his expression after hearing this. He still looked at the dog owner from Asgard with expectation. No, it should be said that he was a distinguished guest. Before Asgard came, everyone received relevant notifications. Therefore, almost everyone raised the price at the same time. Those who raised the price 2 or 3 times were considered conscientious, and SHIELD quietly raised it 10 times. Even if it was 50% off, it was a 5-fold profit with tears. Alas, it was still a bit of a loss. The price should be raised 100 times. I believe that this group of dog owners can swallow all the goods. That is the real profit. A thought emerged in the mind of the SHIELD agent, but it dissipated in an instant. Don't forget that the Vincian world also has its own price supervision system. 10 times is already the limit. He had received a warning when he set it to 50 times last time. Buy it. The red-haired strongman Peters waved his hand and said proudly, "It's not just a few coins, just some ores, herbs, and gold coins. Only Asgard gold coins are worth more. But who is he? His father is the god of fire. This little money is nothing." Ding, Mr. Mordo, your store account has been transferred to 800,000 magic points. Please check. The reminder of the Vincian world rang in his ears, and the smile on the face of the SHIELD agent Mordo became even bigger. "Welcome, dear guest. Come again next time. Our store is deploying more powerful weapons." Standing at the door, Mordo waved and shouted enthusiastically to the red-haired strong man's back. At this moment, Captain Marvel looked at the scene in front of him and suddenly didn't know what to say. Although the weapons on Earth can't be said to be too bad, they are just some cheap goods in the universe, and they still use the most basic chemical collision. The main weapons left in the universe are energy weapons. As a result, these Asgardians really don't take money as money. Coulson, who was standing by, could not hide his joy after seeing this. The profit from the transaction just now was almost comparable to the total income of all the stores of SHIELD since its opening. You know, mages are at most curious about technological weapons, and most of them despise them. At most, they would buy 2 or 3 to try them out. How could this group of Asgardians buy them all? Director Coulson, all the goods in our store are sold out. We have made at least 780,000 magic points this time. Let's continue to transfer goods. We need support from the headquarters. Now these Asgardians don't know the market price at all. If they sell, they will make money. If you miss this time, I don't know when you will make a lot of magic points next time. Shield Agent Mordo walked up to Carlson and said happily, okay, I have contacted the director here, and the relevant resources are on the way. Carlson slightly restrained his smile and said in agreement. Captain Marvel, who was standing by, looked at the two speechlessly and didn't say much. She walked to the door and looked at the Asgardians strolling around and the wizards shopping. Inexplicably, there was a trance in her eyes. Earth, her hometown. It seemed that the most real side was revealed in front of her. Such a peaceful and prosperous beauty disappeared. What a pity it was destroyed. At this moment, Nick Fury's request emerged in her mind. Carol's mind was instantly collected, her eyes clear, and she turned and walked towards the gun dealership of S.H.I.E.L.D. She walked up to Carlson and said in a deep voice, let's go. I know almost everything I need to know. Help me make an appointment with Gilderoy Lockhart, the owner of the Universal World. After hearing this, Carlson's face, which was originally happy because he earned a lot of magic points, turned serious. Looking at this heroic female warrior, he nodded and said in a deep voice, okay, Miss Carol, I will arrange everything. Chapter 590 Prime Minister, Make Britain Great Again. A TV station in London, UK. After consultation with the cabinet in the House of Representatives, the Prime Minister recently announced a series of strategies and decisions aimed at promoting economic and cultural recovery. These include large-scale infrastructure construction projects to improve the efficiency and sustainability of transportation, communications, energy and other fields. In terms of education, we will strengthen skills training and improve the education system. In order to ensure the physical safety of the people and increase the coverage of new vaccinations, they will be provided free of charge. Cultural prosperity is an important part of spiritual construction. The government will invest £1 billion to £2 billion in cultural publicity and cultural construction, and strive to promote British culture and promote the prosperity of the cultural market through movies, TV series and other forms. Make Britain great again. This is the Prime Minister's earnest expectation for the people and the future. In the studio, a man and a woman, the hosts, are solemnly broadcasting today's news. Although they have rich hosting experience and have read the speech countless times in advance, but they can't really read it. When they publicize this news to all the people under the camera, their tone can't help but become passionate. It seems that they have seen a bright future and a beautiful picture. Big moves, really unprecedented big moves in recent decades. I didn't expect that the cabinet and the gentlemen in the House of Representatives would be willing to spend so much money to promote the economic development of the Kingdom of Jin. Let's simply count the amount of money included in the broadcast. I'm afraid it's close to hundreds of billions of pounds. Although it's still in the planning stage, the words have been spoken, and the sound will be heard anyway. Time passed by, and today's news broadcast was about to end. The above is all the content of today's news. Let's see you tomorrow. As soon as the voice fell, there was a click in the lecture room, and the two hosts breathed a sigh of relief. Then, when he lay on the chair and started chatting, Harrison, what day is your appointment for the vaccine? I'm here today. That's great. I'm here today too, and I'm going to get the vaccine with the big team later. Harrison said casually, while sorting out the information on the table. Harrison, how much do you know about this vaccine? Why is it so ostentatious? The station requires everyone to be vaccinated. It seems to be a political task, the female host Alicia asked with some confusion. I asked a friend about this. It is said that a new type of flu was brought from the United States. It is very dangerous. Many people even died in New York. It seems to be a good thing. Alicia nodded and said thoughtfully. Then, the two began to chat. After each broadcast, there was a short break. They simply packed up and rested and chatted. Soon. Dung. Harrison, Alicia, come out. The bus booked by the station has arrived. Go out for vaccination. The two who were chatting heard a knock on the door and urging words from outside. They looked at each other, stood up, and walked outside. The person who reminded them briefly told them the location and hurried to find other people. After all, today is the first day of vaccination, and many people have signed up today. Harrison and Alicia walked towards the gathering place while chatting. Harrison, you said today's news must be explosive, but how much of it can be implemented? Why can't I trust those nobles? Don't worry about it. Anyway, it's better to have it than not, as long as it doesn't affect our welfare. That's right. Alicia thought about Harrison's answer for a while and nodded. Although the nobles are a little unreliable, as long as it doesn't affect me, there's nothing wrong with it. Otherwise, I will join the guild and go on strike. Soon the two arrived at the meeting place and saw several buses. They followed the relevant staff, found their seats, and sat down at ease. At this time, Harrison also took out his mobile phone and started surfing the internet. He was very skilled. He opened the browser, entered a series of URLs, and logged into his account. Then, welcome Agent James back to the SHIELD home. May I ask if you have any valuable information today? Please fill it in. Attention, there are still 2 days before submitting this week's work report. Seeing a pop-up notification of requesting information and work reports on the mobile phone screen, Harrison cursed in his heart. Such as SHIELD is worse than pigs and dogs, and if you want the horse to run, you can't feed it. However, his hands did not slow down, and his fingers kept tapping on the screen. Today's news is rated as ordinary. They are all some well-known policy information. But there is one abnormality. The British government seems to attach great importance to vaccination. The reason is unknown. After typing this text, Harrison paused slightly, as if he was a little unwilling. Then he continued to type. The director of the TV station may have further understanding of the vaccine incident, but the recent operation funds are tight. I hope my family can provide more funds for the operation. After typing this text, Harrison nodded with satisfaction and put away his phone. The daily money making is over. Then, Harrison looked outside the bus. Yes, he is an agent sent by SHIELD to lurk in SHIELD. The location of the TV station allows him to access a lot of first-hand information, and there is a lot of political information involved. However, just a few seconds after he turned his head to look outside, suddenly, buzz. The phone buzzed, as if notifying some information. Harrison immediately became alert and picked up his phone to log into the previous website again. Agent James, the message has been received. The latest operational mission. Please obtain the vaccine while protecting yourself. Well, no money was given. After seeing the mission, the first thought in Harrison's mind was this. After all the hard work, he got a mission, but it was just a pure mission, without any operational funds or expenses. Well, maybe he felt that getting the vaccine was too easy for him. United States, SHIELD. Hill stood in the laboratory, watching the experts and doctors in front of him conducting vaccine testing. Soon, a director in a white coat came up to report to her. Director Hill, there is no difference between the 56 and the vaccine sent this time, and there is no abnormality. And the efficacy is to enhance immunity, and there are more targeted adjustments for some common influenza. Listening to the report of the director of the laboratory in front of him, Hill nodded expressionlessly. The recent intelligence analysis summary of the United Kingdom found that there may be many abnormal points. But after testing, no abnormalities were found. Is there really no abnormality? Or maybe they couldn't detect it, or they didn't see the point. Chapter 591, The Fallen Mage in Action. Tarot Town, UK. Tarot is located in the south of England, about 100 kilometers from London. The town is named after a mysterious legend circulating in the local area. It is said that hundreds of years ago, a prophet named Tarot appeared in the area. He was able to predict the future, turn stones into gold, and control wind, rain, and thunder with a wave of his sleeves. It is widely circulated in the local area, and a temple has been built to worship him. Today, because of its specific myths and legends, coupled with its beautiful scenery, Tarot Town has become a unique tourist destination, and a large number of tourists come here. On the ancient streets in the center of the town, you can enjoy well-preserved historical buildings and exquisite garden landscapes. At this moment, in a tarot-themed cafe, David, the leader of the fallen wizard, is sitting outside. While drinking coffee, he quietly watched the tarot museum opposite. It seems that he is looking at something interesting. Suddenly, a figure in a black robe sat down in front of David. Chief, I don't know where that old guy Tarot has gone. His house has been cleaned up. But, you haven't been here for long. He should have left in the past 1 or 2 days. After hearing this, David sneered. This old guy is indeed a divination expert. He has such a keen sense. Then, David paused, as if thinking about what to do next. Let's put Tarot's matter aside for now. How is our plan going? Hearing this, the Dalo mage opposite showed a look of joy and pride on his face. Chief, this didn't encounter any problems. It was even very smooth. Before, our companions in Kamar-Taj would never have thought that we almost controlled the entire British government. Maybe they don't even know we are in the UK now. The mage was very proud, because their progress in the UK was really smooth, and they had huge gains. In a sense, they controlled the entire British government, which was equivalent to controlling the entire UK. However, immediately afterwards, the fallen wizard seemed to have thought of something interesting and said, however, the name of the British side is Me6. The agent organization reported that the American Shield seems to be very interested in the UK recently. It keeps mobilizing agents to collect magic related things. Oh, Shield? David said, seeming a little confused. The fallen wizard on the opposite side immediately introduced. This Shield is an organization under the World Security Council. It has a wide influence and is distributed all over the world, but its main activity location is still in the United States. Then he briefly commented, although its influence is not small, it is just an ordinary agent organization. Maybe they know magic and have a little ambition, but it doesn't affect the overall situation. Hearing this, David no longer paid attention. How is the London Temple? Is there anything unusual? In response to David's question, the fallen wizard looked a little solemn this time. After all, they all came from Kamar-Taj before, and they had a very accurate understanding of the status of the 3 major temples in the entire Kamar-Taj. There is not much information from the London Temple, and the people we arranged did not seem to obtain much important information. However, they have indeed strengthened patrols in all aspects recently, which may be due to the influence of the previous invasion of the God of Dusk, but it is not ruled out that some traces have been found. Unfortunately, the person we arranged has limited status and is just an ordinary formal mage. Hearing this, David frowned slightly. The London Temple is very important. We must know the layout of the London Temple in the UK, otherwise our layout is likely to be affected. Having said that, as if he thought of something, David continued, the top leaders of the London Temple must have our people, so that we can be foolproof. I know Arnold, the guardian mage of the London Temple. He is a stable person. Under his leadership, the casualty rate of the London Temple is the lowest among the 3 major temples. If this guy finds our traces, according to his personality, I'm afraid he will not confront us head on. Instead, he will destroy our layout, reduce our strength, and finally hunt us down. At that time, it will be very troublesome. Hearing this, the fallen mage on the opposite side also frowned tightly. He didn't know much about the guarding wizards of the London Temple, but he felt it was difficult to hear the leader say that. However, suddenly, his eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something. Leader, I have an idea. I believe it will help us get more important information about the London Temple. London Temple, practice room. Bang, bang, bang. The red flame energy stick hit the battle wizard in front, but the opponent was not to be outdone, and also waved the long stick to resist and counterattack. After a few loud bangs, Strange felt a violent tremor in his hands. Although he still held it down steadily, he still felt his hands trembling. Then, he rubbed his hands together, and the long stick disappeared, and turned into 2 long whips. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The red flame energy whip was swung hard, breaking the air directly, making a sharp whistling sound. After seeing this, the wizard on the opposite side waved the hanging ring in his hand, and constructed a shield. He raised the shield with his left hand, and picked up the short stick with his right hand. Then, step, step, step. The wizard stepped forward with a big step, raised his short stick, and rushed towards Strange quickly. Bang, bang. Seeing this, Strange quickly swung the long whip in his hand, and the long whip hit the shield with a few bangs, but it didn't seem to have much effect. At this time, the short stick seemed to be about to hit him. So, step. He quickly took a big step back, trying to keep a reasonable distance, and avoid the attack. However, the wizard on the opposite side would not miss such a good opportunity. When Strange retreated, he took a step forward. and faster and faster. His long stick kept swinging, as if he was ready to put more pressure on Strange. However, after taking a few steps, Strange's eyes flashed with a smile. The ring in his hand kept swinging, and a dark blue circular complex pattern suddenly appeared on the ground. The pattern was not big, but it was more than enough for one person to stand. At this moment, the battle wizard on the opposite side seemed to realize that he was standing in the middle of the entire magic pattern. The next moment, crackling, blue lightning suddenly appeared. The battle mage standing in the center of the scene thought it was bad and tried to escape, but found that he was paralyzed all over. Strange, who was not far away, saw the stiff battle mage and smiled faintly. He was not good at close combat, but he knew a lot about magic. It was too easy to set up a magic trap. Seeing that Ryan, a famous battle mage in the entire London Temple, was successfully paralyzed and restrained by him, Strange nodded with great satisfaction. Mage Ryan, now, can you let me participate in the combat mission of the London Temple? Chapter 592 Kamar-Taj Battle Mage, Introducer. Gulp, gulp. Strange wiped the sweat off his face and gulped down a few mouthfuls of cold water. Behind him, several wizards were fighting fiercely. Almost every moment, one could hear the whistling of sticks, the whipping of long whips, and the roar of magic. Although Strange's face was red from the battle, he still couldn't hide his joy. Finally, he joined the ranks of battle wizards. Strange had met Onold many times on the frontline battlefield such as the Dimensional Gap, but he was always shirked by him for various reasons. Later, Strange also thought it through. The road still needs to be taken step by step, and the meal still needs to be eaten bite by bite. Maybe he can't participate in the frontline battlefield for the time being, but do some combat missions first, on the one hand, to exercise your practical experience, and on the other hand, to accumulate qualifications. Arnold has taken a lot of them, and his lack of experience is an excuse. While drinking cold water, Strange looked at the many wizards who were fighting fiercely. Watching them skillfully cast various magics, they turned into energy sticks, swords, shields, and all kinds of weapons. It can be said that each wizard is an arsenal of weapons. From time to time, they closed the distance, slashed with swords, and then stepped back, distanced themselves, and cast magic. With wonderful steps, they staggered various attacks, and looked for the right time to counterattack. TSK. Full of aggression. Even watching it feels very cool. Strange thought silently. The originally surging magic power in his body gradually stabilized, and the amount was almost restored. Strange turned the ring in his hand slightly, and two red flame short sticks suddenly appeared in his hands. He took a few steps forward, ready to join the battle again. At this moment, suddenly, warning, warning, abnormal energy has been found. Team 3, Team 4, Battle Mages assemble. Repeat again. Team 3, Team 4, Battle Mages assemble. Cigarette repeated it several times, and like some mages, Strange's face became serious, but with a hint of joy. He is now affiliated with Team 4. Team 3, assemble forward. Team 4, assemble forward. As expected, two loud voices rang out, indicating that the mages strode forward, and Strange could not help but speed up. Soon, he saw his captain, Laurie Stern. Mage Ryan, this time we are going on a mission, right? Strange whispered to his introducer Ryan. Yes, joining the battle team also requires an introducer. Battle mages will definitely be in danger of their lives. The Kamar-Taj London Temple will never let someone with no combat experience join. So there must be screening, there must be assessment, and there will also be introducers. Every introducer will be responsible for the wizards they introduce, especially for some small details of the newly joined wizards. Wizards who have just joined are very likely to make mistakes and even pay the price of their lives. In a sense, the relationship between the introducer and the introduced is very close. After hearing Strange's question, Wizard Ryan smiled and touched his beard, saying, "Yes, this is also your first mission, Strange." Then, with a serious face, he reminded, "Don't always want to do something on your first mission. I know you are talented, your combat ability is not weak, and you are also very smart. But remember my advice this time. Watch more and ask less. If you don't understand, ask me after the mission is over." Don't do unnecessary things during the mission. Hearing this, Strange nodded to show that he understood, but Ryan saw his expectant and even excited expression and couldn't help feeling a little headache. He knew the pain of the guard wizard Arnold. Strange is a genius, and he can fight him on equal terms in a short time. Of course, he didn't cast some powerful magic, but it was enough to show Strange's talent. Such a genius, which one doesn't have your own ideas in his heart. They are all a bunch of thorns. No matter how much you say, he won't listen. Alas, Ryan recalled his state when he was young and couldn't help but be a little speechless, because he found that he was like this when he was young. Later, after experiencing more things, he became calm and cautious. Strange, you must remember that if a genius dies, he is no longer a genius. After thinking about it, Ryan warned again. Although he felt that this mission might not be difficult, it was still necessary to emphasize it. Okay, I understand, Master Ryan, I will pay attention. Strange said very quickly. Well, it's useless again. Looking at Strange's expression, that he didn't listen at all, Ryan couldn't help but sigh. Forget it, everyone has this stage. An abandoned building in South London. The building under the setting sun looked particularly shabby, with cracks everywhere, and the walls were scratched and painted with all kinds of chaotic patterns, plus the plants growing randomly, showing desolation. But if you look from the top of the high-rise building, you will find that the sunset is still so beautiful. At this time, the abandoned building, which originally had a large number of homeless people, seems particularly quiet. If you look from a distance, you will find that the building is dark under the sunset, and you can even vaguely see the existence of black fog and blood. Roaring sounds came from inside the building, while everything was quiet outside. Looking inside from the gate, the shadows were like a cold giant python with its bloody mouth open, waiting for its prey to come. But suddenly, red flames appeared out of thin air, stirring up the surrounding space fluctuations. In just 2 or 3 seconds, several red flame transmission halos appeared one after another. From them, London Temple mages wearing yellow combat uniforms stepped out one after another. Whoosh, whoosh. As soon as they arrived in front of the building, several mages summoned their magic weapons to be alert, and at the same time cast magic to detect the building. At this moment, Strange looked up at the abandoned high-rise building with a slightly strange expression. The rich dark energy exudes the unique stench of hell. This is not surprising. He has always been very sensitive to energy, but why does he feel an inexplicable call? He is not a demon from hell. Thoughts floated in his mind, and Strange's expression became serious. Let's go. Everyone be alert. Captain Stern said seriously. Follow me closely. Don't run around. Ryan walked up to Strange and reminded him. As the introducer of the team, he was responsible for Strange. Strange nodded, followed Ryan, and prepared to go in with the main force. At this time, suddenly, Ryan, you, Strange, and Clean, stay outside the gate and be alert. Chapter 593, Invitation from the Fallen Mage. The captain gave an order. Ryan on the side, grabbed Strange who was walking forward. Why? Strange's tone was puzzled and unwilling. Do you want to hear a nice explanation or a bad explanation? Ryan said lightly as he watched the battle mages in front of him enter the abandoned building one after another. What do you mean? Strange was silent for a moment and asked. The nice explanation is that, because you are a newcomer, we have to ensure your safety. The bad explanation is that for the safety of everyone, you, a newcomer, should not get involved. Ryan rubbed the ring on his finger, looked at the dark building, and said calmly. Hearing this, Strange stopped talking. To put it bluntly, he still didn't trust him, and felt that he was a burden. Seeing that Strange seemed to be in a low mood, Ryan comforted him. Don't think too much. Look at the environment inside. There are probably traps. Although you have good combat ability, you have not accumulated much practical experience. In the eyes of the enemy, you are the weakness of the entire team. In such a dangerous environment, it is best to be able to protect yourself. If you can't protect yourself, it will easily drag others down. Wait, the next simpler task, then accumulate experience step by step. Hearing Ryan's comfort, Strange nodded silently without saying much. He finally understood why Master Arnold didn't allow him to enter the dimensional gap when he proposed to enter the dimensional gap. For combat missions like this in this world, he is not allowed to participate in some dangerous ones. Not to mention the frontline battlefield of the dimensional gap. To put it bluntly, Strange was introduced by the Supreme Sorcerer and is a well-known genius. Otherwise, just making this request would be scolded for overestimating his ability. Ryan, who was standing by, saw Strange's expression gradually returning to normal and nodded slightly. He was Strange's introducer, and there was also the factor of guarding the wizard Errad. As we all know, geniuses are arrogant, and people like Strange are even more obvious. Well, he found a way to die, and he was very cool. And as Strange's introducer, one of the most important tasks was to polish Damo Strange's arrogance. Even this time, Ryan and Captain Stern had discussed whether to let Strange stay outside. Now it seems that at least it is moving in a good direction. Soon, Ryan squinted his eyes and looked deep into the building and clearly felt the chaotic energy fluctuations inside. Strange also chatted with another person who was guarding the wizard outside. But after chatting for a while, he stopped chatting, standing outside and waiting silently, inferring the battlefield inside, based on the perceived energy fluctuations. Well, the dark energy is very chaotic and agitated. It seems that it has suffered a lot of damage and tried to counterattack. The magic fluctuations seem to be a little weak, but continuous, and should be mainly close combat. Soon, the energy fluctuations gradually subsided, and Captain Stern walked out, followed by other slightly embarrassed team members. It was just embarrassed, with a little blood at most, but no one was missing. Ryan on the side had a faint smile on his face. It seems that the enemy is not difficult this time. However, he did not regret not asking Strange to go in. There is no luck on the battlefield. If you want to survive by chance on the battlefield, then death will be the final outcome. Only the brave, who dare to fight for a glimmer of life in all kinds of dangers, have a chance to survive. This is Ryan's life experience. Just like the previous mission, Captain Stern briefly talked about the situation inside. The devil from hell coincidentally passed through the dimensional gap. Then review this battle, pick out some problems, and alert everyone. Then, the space fluctuations rose slightly, and everyone opened the portal to leave here. But what everyone didn't know was that Strange, who was the last to open the portal, turned his head and looked at the abandoned building with a strange look in his eyes. Time passed slowly, and soon, the sunset completely fell. The afterglow of the sunset disappeared completely, and the night replaced it. The bright moonlight gradually enveloped the dilapidated building. It was late at night, and the wild cats and dogs nearby seemed to realize the safety of this place and gradually returned to their former homes. The sounds of birds, beasts and crickets gradually sounded. Suddenly, a buzz, a red flame-colored halo appeared, startling the wild cats around and making them flee quickly. The next moment, a figure wearing a red cloak walked out. It was Dr. Strange, Stevenson Strange. But, as soon as he walked out, Strange immediately waved his hands to form a shield and looked around vigilantly. He released his mental power and didn't seem to feel any danger. He relaxed a little and walked into the dark and dilapidated building. The red flame-colored magic shield light dispelled the darkness nearby, reflecting Strange's serious face. Step, step, step. Footsteps sounded in the silent building, and Strange's expression became more and more strange, as if he felt something strange. But, suddenly, as Strange swung the ring, several bright, dazzling balls of light emerged and scattered around. The entire floor was instantly bright, with cracked walls, dark green and smelly blood on the ground, and broken stones. But these did not seem to attract Strange's attention. He raised his head and focused his eyes on the ceiling, as if he could see higher up from the ceiling, or even deep space. On the ceiling, various lines and graffiti were painted on the ceiling, and the traces of battle in the pits were vaguely visible. Calling, resonance, the intimacy and familiarity like family, the desire and heat like a lover. At this moment, Strange was sober and even a little abnormal. He knew very well that there was something wrong with this state, but he could not cover up his inner desire. This sobriety instead fueled his inner desire. Chaos magic. This is the chaos magic he has been exploring. The chaos magic that can become a god. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The emotion of desire seemed to stir the magic power in the body, and the red cloak seemed to sense that something was wrong with the master's state. It began to wave, as if it was ready to take Strange away from this place. However, when it was about to leave, suddenly the wind disappeared, the emotion suddenly stabilized, and the magic power was calm. All this made the red cloak, who was about to take the master away, stunned, as if what happened just now was an illusion. The red collar gently rubbed Strange's cheek, as if asking some questions. And Strange was stroking gently, as if to comfort and relieve the anxiety of the red cloak. But his eyes were dim, as if to indicate that he was thinking about something. Invitation. This is a magical invitation from an unknown force. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Doctor Strange's Heartbeat, The Power of Dusk. In the unknown space, darkness, shadow, killing, chaos and other negative energies are intertwined. These energies collide and destroy each other. Storms formed purely by energy are blowing, stirring up the energy to further chaos. When the energy gradually tends to calm down, suddenly, another energy storm is set off, further pushing the energy chaos in the space, like the waves on the beach, layer upon layer, never stopping. It seems that chaos is the only theme in the entire space. However, if you focus your eyes on the center of the entire dark and chaotic space, you will find a dark yellow magic castle floating in the void. The area near the castle is like the eye of the storm. It is calm here, or full of order. I don't know if it is because of the suppression of the magic castle, or because of the order that emerged from the endless chaos. This place seems unusually peaceful. Desire, temptation, threat. This dark yellow ancient magic castle seems to be emitting an inexplicable atmosphere all the time. Ordinary people, even if they just take a look at it, will bleed from all 7 orifices, feel sick, and their souls will enter it uncontrollably. Dusk, dusk, dusk. If the magicians of Kamar-Taj saw this ancient magic castle, they would probably be able to immediately distinguish the breath of the Twilight God. Yes, this is the Twilight Castle, which exudes a strong breath of the power of Twilight, as if the Lord of Twilight himself had come. However, the reality is that the Lord of Twilight has been killed by the supreme sorcerer of Kamar-Taj. The corpse, the dimension, the origin, all become the spoils of Kamar-Taj. At this moment, Strange stood in front of this Twilight Castle, thinking silently in his heart. He had received an invitation before. He didn't know which force was behind it, but the content of the invitation made him quite interested, because the other party was trading chaos magic. However, when he opened the space portal in the direction of the invitation, he saw everything in front of him, and felt his scalp tingling. Twilight power. There is no doubt that the other party is absolutely and closely related to the fallen wizard who defected before. Because when that group of fallen wizards defected, they took part of the origin of the Twilight God from the temple. Although not many people know about it, Doctor Strange has a certain understanding. Click, click, click. Standing in front of the door, Strange was hesitating whether to go forward and knock on the door. At this moment, as if sensing Strange's arrival, with the sound of a click, the door of the Dusk Castle slowly opened. Strange watched. The door had been completely opened, and it seemed that there was a dark magic castle inside. He hesitated for a moment, and slowly stepped in. Bang! Just after entering the door, taking a few steps, entering the interior of the castle, with a bang, the door behind him slammed shut. Strange couldn't help but look back, his face slightly nervous. But he didn't seem to be too worried or scared, and turned to walk into the castle. This Dusk Castle seemed to have many years of history. At a glance, it was ancient and fragrant, exuding a flavor called history. Oil paintings, sculptures, and strange candles of various ages can be seen everywhere. If you ignore the evil god factor of this castle, there is no doubt that it has great historical value. However, Strange glanced at it and seemed to be unmoved. He quickened his pace and walked towards the depths of the castle. Just like the previous magic invitation, he could clearly sense a call emerging in his heart, guiding him. He walked towards his destination. Although he felt that every step he took seemed to be led by the nose, exuding a strong smell of calculation. But in addition to strengthening his vigilance, he cooperated with everything else. Soon, following the call of his heart, he entered a spacious circular hall. On the edge of the hall, a large number of torches formed a circle, making the entire hall particularly bright and emitting a hint of warmth. For some reason, in such an environment, the originally vigilant Strange relaxed a little. "Come out, you spent so much effort to invite me here," Strange said, and his loud voice spread throughout the circular hall. However, everything around was normal, as if the words just now did not awaken certain existences. "If you don't come out, then I'll leave." As he said, Strange began to wave some hanging rings in his hand, trying to open a portal to leave. However, as the red flame sparks lit up, they soon went out completely. The space teleportation gate was not opened either, as if it was restricted. After noticing everything, Strange did not seem to be too surprised. Instead, he turned his head to look at a passage in front of him on the left, where a man in a black robe gradually walked out. Snap, snap, snap. "Strange, I've heard of your genius for a long time. I didn't expect that you are so proficient in using such a difficult magic as a flesh and blood clone." A loud voice sounded, and the fallen wizard seemed to begin to praise Zile. Yes, the Strange who came this time was not the original Strange, but a magic clone or a flesh and blood clone. After all, no one knows what kind of danger is behind this magic invitation. He was not stupid enough to come directly in person. After all, no matter how stupid he was, he would not fall into the trap. After hearing the words of the fallen wizard, Strange did not show any emotion, and his face was still expressionless. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "You invited me here. Now, I'm here. It's time to show your sincerity. If these fallen wizards set traps or fooled him, at most, this flesh and blood clone will be handed over here. As for the future, he will naturally fight to the death with these fallen wizards who designed him." It seemed that he understood Strange's thoughts very well, and the fallen wizard did not particularly bother about the fact that Strange did not come in person. He raised his right hand slightly, stretched out his palm, and in the blink of an eye, a burgundy magic book slowly floated in his hand. Then, the fallen wizard waved forward lightly, and the burgundy magic book flew towards Strange. The flying speed was neither fast nor slow, but it made Strange feel itchy. The book fell in front of him, and he quickly flipped through a few pages. Seeing the familiar characters and some introductions to chaos magic, Strange nodded slowly. No matter what, even if this flesh and blood clone was handed over here, it was not a loss. As he was flipping through the book to review it, the fallen wizard standing not far away slowly spoke. "Strange, you are a genius. But Kamar-Taj is the graveyard of geniuses. There are countless genius wizards in history, but only a few survived. In fact, the longest one has not lived past 100 years old. Almost all genius wizards died on the battlefield. Strange, there is no doubt that this is your future. Tell me an answer. Are you willing to become a cannon fodder wizard under Vishanti?" Strange, who was flipping through the book, paused slightly, but did not seem to be frightened by the fallen mage's alarmist words, and continued to flip through the book. It seems that he is ready to write down all the knowledge in this book during this period of time. Even if this clone encounters danger, it will not be a loss. The fallen mage saw Strange flipping through the book, and seemed to be indifferent to what he had just said. He could not help but be silent for a while, and continued to say, "Strange, I know you want to study chaos magic, but are you mentally prepared for the possible harm of studying chaos magic?" This time, Strange, who was flipping through the book, stopped abruptly, slowly raised his head, and looked at the fallen mage opposite. Feeling Strange's gaze, the fallen wizard could not help but nod with great satisfaction. Genius, for the mysterious, unknown, powerful magic, naturally full of curiosity and pursuit. Strange, since you want to learn chaos magic, you must know the relationship between chaos magic and the god of dark magic, Sithan. Don't forget, Vishanti is the god of white magic. The two are inherently opposite. Although Kamar-Taj has not explicitly prohibited the study of chaos magic, it is generally opposed to chaos magic. Strange, I believe you have also noticed that there are very few books about chaos magic in the library. This time, Strange gave up the idea of continuing to read and quietly looked at the fallen wizard opposite. Of course, he knew the dangers that the other party was talking about. Although there is little introduction to chaos magic in the Kamar-Taj library, but when he was in the Vincian world, he learned a lot of information about Sithin from the Vincian world library. He also knew the dangers of practicing and studying chaos magic. However, Lockhart and his disciple Wanda are both studying and practicing. So why can't he? Especially, chaos magic is our common pursuit and the path to becoming a god. Strange, in a sense, we are companions. Companions on the path of chaos magic. At this point, the fallen mage's words began to become fanatical. Long life, the possibility of becoming a god, powerful strength, these, chaos magic can satisfy us. Strange, I know what obstacles you are facing now. As a believer of Vishanti, switching to chaos magic is undoubtedly a betrayal. You are very likely to be hostile to both Vishanti and Sithin. Hearing this, Strange, although still expressionless, felt depressed. Yes, the situation is, just as the fallen mage said. This is why he tried every means to enter the dimensional gap. He wanted to use the special chaos of the dimensional gap to block the perception of the two-dimensional gods and facilitate his success in switching to chaos magic. As long as the switch is successful, as long as the first step is completed, next, it will be much easier to operate. We can help you with this. The fallen mage stared into Strange's eyes and said word by word. As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his right palm. A ball of dark red magic floated above his palm, constantly changing into various shapes. Feeling the breath of order and chaos, Slytherin took a deep breath. Chaos magic. The most attractive thing is its mystery. Order and chaos are one, which can create everything and rewrite reality. Look, how beautiful it is. Looking at the ball of chaos magic in his hand, the fallen wizard said with some obsession. You know, we were all believers of Vishanti, but now, we have only paid a small price to cut off the connection with Vishanti and block the prying of Sithorn. We have a complete set of rituals to help you switch to chaos magic at the lowest cost. We even have a complete process to become a dimensional god. At this point, the fallen wizard's words were full of temptation. It must be said that he had a firm grasp on Strange at this moment. Looking at the hesitation and intention on Strange's face, the corners of the fallen wizard's mouth couldn't help but outline a smile. They are all mages of Kamar-Taj, and they were all geniuses. What they think in their heads is pretty much the same. Don't look at them. They defected from Kamar-Taj, but they still have their own power inside Kamar-Taj. Let's ask, Kamar-Taj does have heroic mages who are not afraid of sacrifice and dare to fight against the other dimension. But, how many mages can completely reject the temptation of chaos magic? This is a long life and a way to become a god. As long as they can't refuse, they can't do without allies. Especially geniuses like Strange. They are the most important objects of their attention. Geniuses always find it difficult to reject the temptation of chaos magic. Inhale. Inhale. At this moment, Strange's breathing was a little hurried. It would be a lie to say that he was not moved. But soon, he forced himself to calm down, staring at the fallen mage in black clothes opposite, and asked calmly, "What do you want?" "You, no, it should be said that we want to do something." The fallen mage spoke with a hint of smile. "What we want to do is actually very simple. That is to give us more time to study chaos magic and to step into the realm of dimensional gods. But the most basic premise is safety." "You are right, Master Strange." At this point, the tone of the fallen wizard became very sincere. "We don't want to do anything. We just want a safe enough place and enough time to further study chaos magic. Of course, we also hope that more wizards will join us in the path of deducing chaos magic. Besides that, we have no other requirements." The attitude was very sincere, and there did not seem to be any harsh requirements in the words. Just safety and time. In response, Strange was silent for a moment, not knowing whether he believed it or not, and repeated again, "What do you want?" The fallen wizard opposite stared at Strange's expressionless face. It seemed that he wanted to see some hidden information from the other party's face, and see Strange's attitude. "It's not a special request. We will help you switch to chaos magic. You just need to provide us with some information. Chapter 595. Law Enforcer Lockhart enters the London Temple. London Temple. Arnold, the garrison wizard, was holding a book, sitting in a seat in the corner of the hall, reading comfortably. This was something he liked. He sat in the corner and read quietly. When he took a break, he simply looked at the work of some young wizards in the hall. Although he was considered a middle-aged wizard and theoretically had a lifespan of 100 years, his mentality was a little old. For some reason, when he looked at these young and energetic wizards, he felt a little envious. Dap, dap, dap. With his fingertips gently tapping on the table, Arnold was immersed in the book, and an inquiring look rose on his face. It seemed that he had seen some knowledge that was worth thinking about in the book. Suddenly, Arnold frowned slightly and raised his head. Sure enough, opposite him stood a wizard wearing a dark green wizard's uniform. It was Gilderoy Lockhart. Master Lockhart, you came without saying a word and scared me, Arnold said jokingly. Haha. Lockhart smiled. Arnold, I saw you were reading seriously, so I didn't bother you. I don't think I've read this book. What do you think? Lockhart glanced at it. With his sharp eyes, he could easily see the name on the spine, The Friendship of Life and Magic. Well, the rumors were true. Master Arnold paid great attention to health preservation. It's pretty good. Arnold said simply, if you want to study life magic, you should read this book more. Then, Arnold didn't seem to want to discuss this topic too much, and directly changed the subject. Lockhart, Master Grindelwald told me about your matter. I have also received news from Kamar-Taj. The London Temple welcomes the joining of law enforcement mages. I believe that under the supervision of the law enforcers, the efficiency of the London Temple will be greatly improved. No, I'm only joining temporarily. Lockhart said modestly, I will not interfere with the work of the London Temple too much. I will need the help of the London Temple later. I will leave when the work is done. Yes, Grindelwald came to the London Temple last time, on the one hand, to meet with the people of the London Festival and get to know each other. After all, he may be in the UK for a long time in the future. On the other hand, it is also to convey some information for Lockhart, or to communicate. In other words, Lockhart is likely to enter the London Temple as a law enforcer in the future. Because of the War of Dimensional Invasion, Lockhart made a great contribution. His original temporary law enforcement identity has long been transformed into a formal law enforcer, and his status is not low. Generally speaking, Lockhart has no problem entering the London Temple through his relationship with the law enforcers in Kamar-Taj. As long as the reason is right, the guarding wizard can't find fault. However, it's only in theory. Theory is theory, reality is reality. Even if you think with your feet, a high-ranking wizard suddenly parachuted in from above, and he is also a law enforcer, similar to the role of a supervisor. It is easy for some conflicts to arise between the two sides. Even if there is no conflict on the surface, there will be conflicts inside. And Lockhart came to the London Temple not to rectify the internal corruption or other problems of the London Temple. His most important goal is still the group of fallen wizards. Naturally, he doesn't want to cause too many conflicts with the guarding wizards. Their cooperation is needed later. So it is necessary to communicate in advance to reduce the possibility of conflicts in the future. Otherwise, when you really encounter something, the wizards of the London Temple will not only not help, but also drag your feet. Then there is really no grievance to say. Arnold's heart was actually quite complicated at the moment. He was disgusted. After all, his London Temple was doing well and there weren't too many accidents. Then suddenly someone came and said he wanted to check the work of the London Temple. He couldn't refuse. He had to cooperate with whatever the other party said. However, the other party had sent someone to inform before the incident. To be honest, he felt better, but he still felt a little disgusted. Oh, forget it. Just finish it early and leave early, as long as it doesn't affect my slacking off. Master Arnold silently comforted himself in his heart and smiled at Lockhart. Master Lockhart, we have arranged a room for you. I'll have someone take you there. After all, the London Temple mission will require our cooperation. Lockhart pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, okay, thank you Master Arnold. But there is something I want to tell you. I have bought a house in London, so I may not stay in the London Temple for long. Hearing this, Master Arnold smiled faintly. It's okay. It's okay. We are all in London, so it's convenient to come to the temple. Just come if you have something to do. Well, this Lockhart is okay. If he really lives in the London temple, he will see him every day. If he wants to intervene in related matters, he can't refuse. That would be really screwed. I believe Master Grindelwald should have told you that we have found some traces of the fallen wizard in London, England. So I found some wizards to come and help. There may be some disturbances in the future. It's okay. It's okay. Arnold said with a smile on his face. Just make it clear in advance. He wished that Lockhart would bring more wizards to help. To be honest, he vaguely felt that London seemed a little unstable, but he couldn't find out anything. In the end, he could only ask the wizards to strengthen their vigilance, but nothing was gained. Now, Lockhart has come and brought other wizards to help. Doesn't that save him a lot of manpower and material resources? As for the real discovery of the problem, it is also inseparable from him, the London Temple. At that time, no one should be left behind. Arnold calculated very carefully. At present, it seems that the arrival of this wizard Lockhart has more advantages than disadvantages. At this moment, Lockhart, looking at the smile on the face of the wizard Arnold, was relieved. This is in London, not New York. Some things really cannot be separated from this local snake. Moreover, although he doesn't know what will happen in the future, but he can feel that London and even the whole of Britain will probably become a focus. After all, Asgard has sent people here. In order to ensure that there are as few accidents as possible in the future, he will win over all the wizards who may stand on the same line with him. After all, the Supreme Sorcerer has emphasized it. Naturally, he dare not neglect it. At this moment, suddenly, Master Arnold, there is something I need you to do. Hey, Mr. Lockhart, why are you here in the London Temple? Chapter 596, The Dream World arrives in London. Rumble. God's sword without shadow. Thunderbolt. Ian, Remy and others waved their magic wands one after another, casting spells at the hideous and dark hell monster on the opposite side. With a loud bang, the deep blue sea of thunder enveloped the hell monster, and the majestic magic power spread all around. In an instant, a burnt smell filled the surroundings. After a moment, Ian, Remy and the other four looked expressionlessly at the body of the hell monster in front of them that had been cut into pieces. But, cause and effect pursuit. Fate entangled. In the void, a large number of complex and mysterious crimson rune patterns emerged. On the opposite side, Wanda waved her magic wand, and the chaotic magic power surged out of her body, constructing one pursuit magic after another. The mysterious crimson pattern covered the body of the hell monster, and Wanda's black eyes instantly turned dark red. In her sight, lines of various colors emerged, silver, gold, red, black, etc., all kinds of different, with different auras. Strange, who was standing by, and the wizard of the London Temple who followed him, watched the scene in front of them. Surprise flashed in his eyes. It was not because he had forgotten her age, nor because of the magic she cast. But her aura at the moment was really hard to describe in words. It was sacred, but with a hint of depravity. Order and chaos are one and the same. This strange, powerful aura is self-evident. Chaos magic. Strange shouted silently in his heart. There is no doubt that Wanda is casting chaos magic at this moment. It is also what he has been pursuing for some time. Not long ago, he returned to the London Temple and was ready to discuss some things with Master Alode, but he saw Lockhart. Only then did he know that Lockhart joined the London Temple as a law enforcer and was responsible for supervising some affairs. To be honest, after knowing this, Strange was surprised, but he felt it was reasonable. Because when he was studying in Kamar-Taj before, he heard a lot about Lockhart's deeds, his universal world, his battle with Dormammu, his contribution to the dimensional invasion, and so on. Everything seemed natural. Lockhart did not interfere with the operation of the London Temple. He just did one thing. Every time the London Temple was on a combat mission, or to be more precise, in a place with abnormal energy fluctuations, he would send his disciples or people from the universal world to help. Just like now. They found some hell monsters invading, but they did not take action. The people from the universal world had already dealt with them. Of course, their purpose was not pure, or they were for. No, this should be an accident. No other factors were involved. It should have nothing to do with the fallen wizard. The rune pattern that emerged in the void gradually retracted, and the magic power in Wanda's body returned to normal. Hearing Wanda's analysis, Ian, Vera and others nodded to show that they understood. But Remy frowned and said, "It shouldn't be. The frequency of hell monsters appearing recently is too high. I've seen the battle records of the London Temple before, and it has never been so high. It's obvious that there is an abnormality." The magician of Kamar-Taj on the side also nodded to what Remy said. To be honest, everyone felt that something was wrong, but no one has found any clues. This normal and abnormal state has caused confusion and puzzlement to many wizards. Remy asked questions, but there was still no answer. Ian, Wanda and others had just come to London not long ago, and they didn't know what to say. And the wizards of Kamar-Taj, although they had been in London for a long time, didn't seem to have any useful information. In the end, it was left unresolved. Late at night, the bright moonlight fell on the city of London. As one of the world's leading cities, London is still brightly lit at night. There is no doubt that, like New York and Hong Kong, it is also a city that never sleeps. It seems that sleeping is a very wasteful thing in such a night. The real nightlife has just begun. The neon lights are flashing, and the pedestrians on the road are cheering. High in the sky, several figures stood in the air, looking at the city that never sleeps below. "How is the progress?" A figure suddenly spoke. "Very good. Britain's foundation is still very good. Although it is not as good as New York, the desires it contains are also extremely powerful. Enough as a sacrifice." A wizard who was slightly behind introduced, "I believe that the transformation will be completed soon. Don't take it lightly." Wizard David, who was standing in the front, said, "The London Temple has been dispatched more and more frequently recently. Be careful not to let them find some traces." A wizard next to him sneered, "They have all found the wrong direction. Now all their energy is on the dimensional gap. I'm afraid that, when they find the real problem, we will all be finished. We still have to be careful." Wizard David was silent for a moment, and said calmly, "The more critical the moment, the more we have to keep our composure. Recently, Lockhart and people from the Vincian world have also joined in. If we are not careful, and are caught by them, we will be passive then." Wizard David warned again. His tone became colder. "If an accident really happens, no matter who it is, we can only cut off our arms." Hearing this, all the mages present were stern and their bodies tensed up slightly. It seemed that they knew what David meant. If they were caught, or there was a possibility of leaking information, they would have no choice but to die. In the magic world, there are many means to ensure that this matter is carried out without any discount. For example, contracts, curses, etc. Seeing the changes in the expressions of these companions, David could not help but nod slightly. There is often only one critical opportunity. If an accident really happens, others will be alert. Then, I don't know how many years will pass before the next opportunity. At this moment, suddenly, a strange mental fluctuation suddenly emerged and continued to spread. David, who was standing high in the sky, seemed to sense something, and his face changed drastically. "Let's go back to Dusk Castle. There is an accident." David shouted loudly, and in an instant, his whole body turned into a dark yellow light spot, which spread around in an instant and then disappeared. Several fallen wizards on the side seemed to have also felt this huge and weird mental power, and their faces became ugly. They looked at each other, without communicating, and each of them used their own methods to escape from this place. At this time, the terrifying huge mental power continued to spread around from London as the center. The originally noisy and bustling city gradually became quiet and silent. The lights were still the same as usual, as if nothing had changed in this city that never sleeps. The only change was that the entire city had become so quiet. At this moment, London was enveloped by this huge and strange spiritual power. No, it should be said that it was enveloped by the power of dreams. A huge dream world descended on London. Chapter 597 Dimensional Evil God Lockhart. Prosperity. Silence. These two words should be opposite to each other, but they appear at the same time at this moment, which even makes people feel weird. Looking down from the sky, the vast London is brightly lit and prosperous, with pedestrians on the road shoulder to shoulder, which is worthy of the title of the city that never sleeps. However, if you look closely, you will find that the city does not seem to emit even a trace of sound. Even the mechanical broadcasting sound seems to be swallowed up by an invisible force. The pedestrians on the road are still doing the same things as before. Some are shouting, some are shopping, some are barbecuing, and some are even eating. It seems that everything is normal, but there is no sound in this normality. It makes people feel creepy. At this time, any sober person who walks in front of any human in this city will clearly find that their eyes seem a little confused and their movements are a little stiff. Just like puppets or sleeping. Unconsciously. It seems that all actions are controlled by the subconscious. Let this city retain its original signs to a certain extent. Link fate. Link the spiritual ocean. Link. Scanning the power of dreams. Searching for the power of fate. Analyzing magic information. Comparing spatial barriers. No abnormalities in the East District. 2 abnormal points were found in the West District. 3 were found in the South District. 1 was found in the North District. At this moment, any wizard staying in London would find that a huge and strange spiritual power was surging at a high frequency. There was irregularity in the agitation, not at all chaotic, but more order. Like a machine, it continued to extend the entire city over and over again. Very delicate and very fascinating. Covering the first time, the second time, scanning the third time, the fourth time. In just 1 minute, it had scanned no less than 50 times from all angles. 3 weak points in space were found in the East District and are being tracked. The fate of 50 people in the West District has changed. Analyze the source of the abnormality. 5 traces of chaotic magic appeared in the South District. The power of dreams is very magical. It can simulate various powers, magic, mental power, dark power, light power, fate power, etc. And with the huge power of dreams, it covers the entire city and transforms into various strange powers to constantly resonate, scan, analyze, and compare. At this moment, a huge amount of information is constantly gathering in the center of the London Temple. In the hall of the London Temple, many top mages are concentrating on the light curtain that appears in front of them. Through the systematic arrangement of the spirit of dreams, various analysis results are constantly refreshed on the light curtain like an information waterfall. Magic trajectory route, London map, cloud and rain trajectory, space fluctuations. Various extraordinary and non-extraordinary information constantly flashes on the light curtain. Almost every second, there are always hundreds of pieces of information that emerge again and then are brushed down. Ordinary people will only be dazzled. However, basically everyone present was a wizard with strong mental power, and even the weakest one was a genius like Strange. He took in all the information flashing on the light screen every minute and every second, and performed crazy calculations and deductions in his mind, as if he wanted to find any abnormalities. After immersing himself in analysis for 2 or 3 minutes, Strange couldn't stand it anymore. His face was flushed, as if he was drunk, or his brain was running at high speed. He now felt that his spirit seemed to be a little slow, and his consciousness was a little stuck, just like a computer data overload. He had to exit the analysis state and cast magic on his brain to relax and rest. The data was too huge and too messy. He couldn't understand the purpose of a lot of information after reading it, but he still forced himself to remember it, because even if he didn't know some information, he might use it later. At the same time, he watched the status of other wizards, but he found that many wizards looked normal. Their eyes were fixed on the light screen in front of them, and they didn't say a word, as if they were completely immersed in it. And Strange could only be amazed, worthy of being a wizard who had practiced for many years. When he focused his eyes on Lockhart, who was standing in the front, he found that the other party did not seem to focus on the light curtain, but smiled at him. In an instant, he retracted his gaze like a mouse seeing a cat, and continued to cast his eyes on the light curtain with complicated information. At this moment, Lockhart looked around for a while, and continued to close his eyes. The mental power communicated with the spirit of the dream, and after screening, important information continued to appear in his mind. The fate trajectory of ordinary people, the abnormal fluctuations of magic gathering points, and the active trajectory of chaotic magic. While exploring the traces of the fallen wizard, he had a more comprehensive understanding of the London Temple, the whole of London, and even the operation of the earth. Yes, when ordinary means could not detect the traces of the fallen wizard, he discussed with the guarding wizard Arnold, and used his own means to conduct a full-scale search. The movement may be a bit loud, but under Lockhart's persuasion and Arnold's vigilance against potential dangers, he finally chose to print. Lockhart chose to bring his dream world to London, trying to analyze any traces of the fallen wizard from all angles. Of course, this all-round analysis will undoubtedly enhance Lockhart's understanding of the Marvel world. Lockhart had also descended into the dream world and the Harry Potter world before, so he naturally understood the benefits of doing so. However, the noise was too loud and unusually obvious. Just like now, the whole of London has been abnormal. Ordinary people may not be able to detect the traces, but extraordinary people are particularly like wizards, and it is impossible for them not to discover it. This is why he discussed with the London Temple and even cast a spell in front of the other party. Because if you are not careful, it is easy to be beaten into the evil way. After all, at first glance, Lockhart's current approach is almost the same as that of the dimensional evil god. It's just that one is trying to descend his own dimension to the earth, and then devour it. Lockhart descended his dream world to a city on the earth, analyzed it, and digested it at the information level. Ding, the dream power has been consumed by 50%, and reached the warning line. It will end in 10 seconds. All data will be saved synchronously, and stored in the dream database 10, 9, 8 buzz. A kind of obscure fluctuation spread outward, as if releasing some information. At the same time, the majestic dream power began to shrink towards the center, and the originally silent city began to become noisy. It didn't take long, only about 10 minutes. As the data above the light screen paused, the wizards present began to come back to their senses, and Lockhart opened his eyes. There was joy in his eyes, but also a flash of pain. In 10 minutes, almost half of Lockhart's dream power was consumed. This was the continuation of his time in the Harry Potter world. He almost plundered the entire world. It has to be said that the agricultural machinery in the Marvel world is stronger than that in Harry Potter. Of course, the harvest is also great. The great creator of the dream world, the recent whereabouts of the fallen wizard have been sorted out and gathered into an action roadmap. Please check it out. Chapter 598 Mephisto and the Corrupted Mage. Huge. Magnificent. Shocking. Although Lockhart said in advance that the noise would be a bit big, basically covering the whole of London, he had already prepared for it in his mind. However, although it was only 10 minutes, everything that happened in front of him gave Arnold, the guarding wizard of the London Temple, a great shock. He asked himself, with his current strength, it seemed that he could not make such a big noise. When he was first enveloped by such a magnificent dream power, he was horrified. It was as if he was analyzed from the inside out. Suddenly, he summoned magic power to cover himself, and then he felt safe. And then, seeing the massive amount of information emerging on the light screen, Arnold couldn't help but sigh. Is he a little old? Why does it feel like he is behind an era? Do wizards now have so many tricks? Finding the traces of the fallen wizard is not only such a big battle, but more importantly, it is so exquisite. Yes, it is exquisite. Delicate, clever. It did not rely on huge energy to search rigidly, but collected information through various means for comparative analysis. This process once reminded Arnold of the technology among ordinary people, like a computer. Although he is nearly 100 years old, he can keep up with the trend of the times. In the past 100 years, almost every step of technological development has been in his sight. Although in his eyes, technology has various defects compared to magic, but it still has some advantages. For example, their meticulous thinking, logic with implicit rules, etc. Therefore, Arnold can be regarded as having a certain understanding. And Lockhart, what he did just now, undoubtedly shows that the other party has a more in-depth research in science. What will happen when magic is blessed by science? He has no impression in his mind. He even tried it before, but found that the two seemed to have little correlation, and even conflict. However, everything in front of him gave him an answer. To be honest, with his strong mental power, He was a little overwhelmed when he saw such a large amount of information emerging for the first time. However, he soon adapted. At the same time, watching the massive amount of information constantly emerging, he tried to thoroughly analyze all the space, time, energy trajectories, etc. in London. Even the relevant information about the London Temple appeared repeatedly in it. This made him feel a sense of fear, which was an instinct of being a guarding mage. He had to admit that in the entire London Temple, it seemed that no one could beat Lockhart at the moment, including him. Lockhart, what did you get? Ered walked to Lockhart's side, stared at the other's dark green eyes, and asked calmly. Although he had given his permission for such a big commotion just now, it was not certain that Kamar-Taj would send someone to inquire. After all, the commotion was indeed not small. Therefore, it is best to see the results, which can at least serve as a reason. I found a lot of useful information. Lockhart replied affirmatively. At the same time, the wand in his hand was slightly raised and gently pulled out directly at the temple. A silver white memory thread slowly emerged. Then, the wand in his hand made a slight circle, and the silver white memory thread condensed into a silver light ball. As the wand was waved, the memory light ball slowly fell in front of Arnold. As if he was familiar with this, Arnold stretched out his right hand and slowly closed his eyes, as if reading some information. But, in an instant, one piece of information after another flooded into his mind, and Arnold frowned. Because there seemed to be a lot of abnormalities. Especially in the past 1 or 2 months, London has already shown signs of chaos. If it weren't for the information provided by Lockhart, he wouldn't even know that more than 50,000 people had disappeared in London in the past 2 months. 50,000 people disappeared in 2 months. There was no news at all. It is conceivable how powerful the mastermind behind the scenes is in the UK. Master Arnold, our method just now was quite loud, and I believe the fallen wizards also sensed it. While Master Arnold was thinking, Lockhart on the side was also analyzing and saying, there is a great probability that they will hide temporarily, and they will come out to commit crimes again after the storm is over. This period of time is the most precious time we can buy. If we can catch the location of that group of them in the next period of time, then I believe that this group of fallen wizards will not be able to turn the world upside down. Hearing this, Master Arnold paused, as if thinking about something. What do you need us to do? After saying so much, isn't it just that they need the London Temple to help them? London is very big, as you can see. There are many abnormal points. It is difficult for my people to collect them all, and it is easy to waste time. For the fallen wizard, the sooner we catch him, the better. Otherwise there will be endless troubles. Arnold was silent about Lockhart's request. He wanted to refuse, but he didn't know how to start. After all, the London Festival also has its own responsibilities, and it is impossible to mobilize all forces just to capture the fallen wizard. However, when he thought that nearly 50,000 people disappeared quietly within a month without any movement or rumors, Arnold couldn't help but feel a chill in his back. Okay, Lockhart, the London Temple will give you full support. Dusk Castle. In the unknown space, the majestic chaotic energy is stirring each other. The castle at the center has a deep yellow streamer on its surface, and the majestic dusk power is attached to the surface. Any agitated energy will turn into peace when it approaches the area near it. Then it flows into the middle and slowly disappears. It seems that this castle suppresses the constant absorption nearby, and transforms the chaotic energy in this space. At this moment, in the hall of the castle, a group of fallen mages in black robes gathered together. Their voices were a little noisy, and they seemed to be discussing something. London will be very dangerous next. I suggest giving up London, and developing from the surrounding cities. After all, there are sacrifices everywhere. We must not leave London. London is one of the 3 weak points in the world. Sacrifices here are the most effective. Leaving London is tantamount to crippling our own arms. Should we stop the relevant activities first, and see how the London Temple has acted recently? We should not be too anxious. No, it's impossible. There is only one chance. At this moment, because the dream world suddenly descended on London, all the mages in London were expelled and returned to the Dusk Castle. They each had their own opinions and views on the next action. It seemed that no one could argue with anyone. At this moment, suddenly, Silence, silence, everyone be quiet. David's calm and composed voice sounded, and the fallen mages present stopped talking and focused their eyes on David, who was receiving the order in the front. Then, they saw the old man standing by. The familiar dark aura was flowing, and the undisguised hellish magic power made people alert. How could this person be an old man? He was the devil of hell, Mephisto. Chapter 599 Mephisto, I want Lockhart. Dusk Castle. The fallen wizard David stood at the front, looking at the vigilant eyes of the wizards on the opposite side. His heart was full of complicated feelings, but when the word came to his lips, his tone was still calm. I know that what happened in London is indeed a bit of a big fuss. But don't worry, Dusk Castle has the ability to ensure the safety of everyone. No matter how powerful the wizards of the London Temple are, it is meaningless if they can't find Dusk Castle. Hearing this, the fallen wizards on the opposite side nodded, indicating that they understood. But their eyes still did not move away from the old man next to David. Mephisto, the demon god of hell. As a wizard, this one is very famous. Maybe this is the first time I meet him, but I have definitely seen such a guy in books before. Cunning, fraud, evil. These words can be said to be underestimated when applied to him. And recently, the time he appeared was the dimensional invasion faced by Kamar-Taj. It can be said that Mephisto, this guy, would be fine if he didn't appear. Once he appears, it basically symbolizes a chaos and the coming of death. Regardless of how big the matter is, or whether it can succeed, death and blood are definitely its background. At this moment, David seemed to see the vigilance in everyone's eyes. Come, let's introduce an old acquaintance. I believe everyone should know that this is Lord Mephisto, the famous god of hell. David introduced to the wizard opposite, and Mephisto seemed to know that his reputation has always been bad, but he showed a kind and gentle smile on his face. It seems that he wants to use the face of an old man to ease everyone's nervous vigilance. Here I have to thank Lord Mephisto specifically. The power of the origin of dusk we obtained before is also due to the previous cooperation with Mephisto. Hearing this, the fallen wizards of number 1 middle school whispered to each other. They left Kamar-Taj for the same purpose. For chaos magic, to become a dimensional god. Among them, David was the whole planner and made a huge contribution. They regarded him as their leader, and the results also made them very excited. Not only did they obtain relevant information and materials related to the chaos magic dimensional gods, more importantly, they obtained the origin power of a dimensional god and part of his wealth. Just like the current Dusk Castle. Of course, the most valuable thing is the power of origin, which directly helped them cross the most important threshold to become dimensional gods. They knew that David might cooperate with the dimensional evil god. They thought it was the god of twilight imprisoned by the supreme mage. But they never expected that it was Mephisto, who was known as a man who would eat people without spitting out bones. Don't worry, mages, I'm just a clone without any power. I'm just talking to you about the next cooperation on behalf of the main body. At this moment, Mephisto said, in view of the good cooperation before, I think we can discuss it further. Of course, I didn't force it. Everyone cooperates to make the pie bigger, not for petty profits. I, Mephisto, swear in the name of the Lord of Hell that I will never take the lead in attacking and betraying my allies. David nodded slowly after hearing this. Trading with Mephisto is itself a very risky thing. Not only does he need protection, but other mages need it even more. Otherwise, even if he is the leader elected by everyone, he is likely to be judged and abandoned by everyone. Masters, I have a general understanding of your goals. And what I want to do will not conflict with the surroundings, and will even complement each other. At this point, Mephisto stretched out a finger and said to everyone word by word, my condition is very simple. There is only one. That is to help me catch Gilderoy Lockhart. I want him alive. An alley in the East End of London. The bright sunlight shines through the white clouds, giving light to the street. The alley at the corner is still dimly blocked by the surrounding high-rise buildings. And in this slightly dim alley, lights of various colors light up from time to time. There are red flames, dark red, turquoise, and all kinds of color patterns. Because several wizards wearing dark yellow wizard uniforms are constantly waving hanging rings and casting magic. At this moment, Wanda is holding a dark green magic book that has been opened for most of the time, concentrating on the location of the spell deep in the alley. Release your mental power and use the dream book in your hand to perceive the subtle spatial fluctuations. Various words and patterns kept appearing on the book. It seemed that all the perceived information was summarized, sorted, analyzed, and compared. This was the Book of Dreams, an extension medium of Lockhart's dream world. Anyone holding this book could connect to the dream world and use the power of dreams. The traces of space that can be searched are very small, the time is too long, and the other party has done special cleaning before. Looking at the analysis results given by the Book of Dreams, Wanda said with some disappointment. After hearing this, the wizard on the opposite side sighed, but seemed to have been mentally prepared for a long time, and said, "Okay, let's go to the next abnormal point. Maybe we can find some useful information." Yes, as far as they know, yesterday Master Lockhart held a super large magic, covering the entire London. All the possible abnormal points and all the weird places in London were found. And what they have to do is actually to find these abnormal points for close analysis, trying to find the traces of the fallen wizard. Seeing this, Wanda waved the wand in her hand and opened a new portal according to the location of the Book of Dreams. However, the other side of the portal this time surprised everyone, because there was no building on the other side of the portal, only endless white clouds and blue sky. Yes, the abnormal point this time was actually in the sky above London. The terrain was so different that some mages were looking forward to it, hoping to gain something valuable. Otherwise they would have to run around London every day during this period. Waving the hanging ring in his hand, he cast a floating magic on himself. Then he floated towards the portal. After seeing all the mages enter the portal and reach the sky above, Wanda showed a playful smile on her face, as if she had thought of something interesting. With a gentle wave of the magic wand in her hand, a roll of maroon carpet slowly emerged. Flying magic carpet. Soon, in the eyes of everyone, a maroon magic carpet was floating in the sky above London. Wanda stood on the magic carpet with the Book of Dreams in her hand, smiling. The mages of Kamar-Taj showed envy in their eyes. Then, they saw the magic carpet slowly getting bigger, and an inviting voice came to their ears. "Everyone, come over here and take a look at the quality of the magic carpets produced by our Ancient world." Chapter 600 Wanda's Death. High in the sky, a huge maroon magic carpet floated in the air. One by one, the magicians stood on the magic carpet, exerted a little force on their right legs, and found that it seemed as firm and stable as the ground. Suddenly, a sense of security emerged in their hearts. Wanda, who was standing aside, watched the magicians of the London Temple stepping on the magic carpet they made, with a joyful smile on her face. She likes to share the good things produced by the Ancient world with outsiders. This is not to show off, but simply to be kind to the outside world. It's like when a child makes friends. When he is young, he always likes to share his favorite things with others. Of course, the fact that this magic carpet was made by her is also a very important factor. She still likes to be recognized and praised by others. "Wanda, this magic carpet is good," a young magician asked enthusiastically. "Where can I buy it in the Ancient world? How much is it?" Yes, the Ancient world is still very famous in the entire Earth's extraordinary world, and they have all been in it more or less. Not expensive, not expensive, only 5,000 magic points," Wanda said with a smile. "It's a new product, which I and several classmates have researched. You can order it directly. If you have any specific needs, such as customizing some patterns, or adding some small functions, just contact the elves when the time comes." Well, another business was brought to the Ancient world. Although the sale of magic carpet is insignificant to the entire Ancient world, but she likes this sense of accomplishment. Maybe, she really regards the Ancient world as her home. Wanda's words seemed to attract the attention of other mages, and they all asked about some details of the magic carpet, and Wanda naturally answered them happily one by one. But soon, she seemed to remember that she still had something to do. "Everyone, hurry up and collect information," Wanda urged everyone. "After today's work, everyone will go to the Ancient world tonight. I will treat everyone to a big meal." The instructor said that during this period of time in London, try to maintain a good relationship with the London Temple, and you may need their support later. Wanda naturally remembered it and would not miss it. Naturally, no one would refuse the urging of a beauty like Wanda. As before, they all waved the hanging rings in their hands, releasing detections one by one, exploring magic. In the sky, various rune patterns kept flashing, and the magic was surging. At the same time, Wanda held the Book of Dreams and released the power of dreams, covering the nearby area, constantly collecting all the information changes in the nearby area at this moment. Any magic will cause corresponding changes, and the power of dreams always covers and deduces all the details of the area at this moment. Any abnormality should be marked. The mages of the temple are trying to find various possibilities through magic. Just when they thought they had nothing to gain from this time and the previous ones, suddenly, ding, abnormal spatial fluctuations were found. Time positioning. Within 13 days, the traces have not been completely erased, suspected to have fled in a hurry. Dusk force remains. Spatial force remains suspected. Chaos magic. Locking through spatial fluctuations. Magic fluctuations are being used to lock and locate. Space activity locking failed. Reason: the residual spatial force is broken and cannot extract valuable positioning. Magic fluctuation locking failed. Reason: magic fluctuation is weak. Point failed. Wanda looked serious and focused, looking at the contents that kept emerging in the dream book in front of her. One by one, the analysis and comparison results. Failure, failure, and failure. Even though David and others fled in a hurry because of Lockhart's dream, they still subconsciously covered up the traces. This undoubtedly made the search difficult. And Wanda, looking at a series of failures, the original surprise gradually disappeared, and she sighed helplessly in her heart. Then dream power, transforming, target dusk power. Dusk power resonance activated. Search for residual traces. Search successful. Locked the activity track of dusk power. Locked. Locked successfully. Unknown space location extracted. Yeah. Seeing the words appearing on the book, a sudden sense of surprise filled my heart. Found it. Found it. Wanda couldn't help but say to the wizard who was exploring. The words were full of surprise and joy. The wizard next to him was also surprised when he heard Wanda's cheers. I never expected that today would be another day of nothing, but I actually found valuable clues. Let's go back and report to Master Arnold and Master Lockhart. A middle-aged temple wizard came out and said to Wanda seriously. After hearing this, Wanda nodded quickly. The impact caused by the fallen wizard is really shocking. In a month, nearly 50,000 people died silently. This is just in London. I'm afraid that the number of deaths in other cities is not small. With such a large number of casualties and such a hidden secret, there is no doubt that the fallen wizard has a big plan. With her thoughts turning, Wanda stretched out the magic wand in her hand and skillfully drew a beautiful trajectory in the air. The next moment, space blockade. But, almost instantly, a powerful and chaotic space fluctuation quickly covered everyone. The portal that Wanda had just opened half of was suddenly closed. At the same time, boom. The middle-aged wizard walking in front raised the glass-like sharp blade that had just condensed in his hand and stabbed Wanda directly at lightning speed. The sunlight fell, and a stream of light appeared on the sharp blade. The sharp part of the blade was slightly dark yellow. The power of dusk was attached to it. But, the magic robe on his body suddenly glowed with a strong red light, as if he felt a threat, opened the defense, and became his own master. However, the power of dusk is, after all, the power of the dimensional god level. Ordinary magic can't hinder it at all. Just like piercing tofu, the sharp blade has passed through the red defense shield. At this moment, Wanda had just been forced to interrupt the teleportation magic and was suffering a certain backlash. She had no time to react and felt a strong stinging pain coming from her back. This stinging pain was unforgettable, as if thousands of silver needles were piercing her heart. Wanda couldn't help it and screamed in pain. The magic power she had just raised collapsed in an instant. She didn't expect to be attacked. They had cooperated well before, and she even planned to treat the temple mage to a meal. The middle-aged mage who attacked from behind looked at Wanda, who was almost half kneeling on the magic carpet with an expressionless face. The sharp blade had been completely inserted into Wanda's body, and a sharp blade covered with blood had appeared on the other side of her body. The bright red blood slowly dripped from the sharp blade onto the maroon blanket. Wanda's face was full of pain and she wanted to struggle, but the pain surged into her heart like waves, and coupled with the suppression of the power of dusk, she couldn't raise the magic power in her body at all, let alone resist. The middle-aged mage, with a cold expression, began to slowly pull out the transparent sharp blade covered with blood. Behind him, the bodies of several temple mages fell on the magic carpet. Beside these bodies, there was a fallen mage who had been stabbed in the back. Just like Wanda just now, she was attacked without any precautions and died. At this moment, Wanda felt cold all over and had no strength at all. The blood in her body kept staying on the magic carpet. The scene in front of her gradually blurred, and the past scenes were quickly switched like a horse-drawn tour. This seemed to be the last memory before death. Suddenly, a strong dark red light suddenly appeared. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.